She says her time in West Africa stirred up deeply mixed emotions.
It's a very difficult thing when you make the journey back after your ancestors were shipped off hundreds of years ago, and it can be very painful. I did go through a process of feeling angry, to be honest. How could my Ghanaian ancestors ship us off like that? And I know people who've had the same thing when they've gone to Benin as well.
Perhaps now then it's time to return to our question. At a time when nationalism has been on the rise in Europe and America, many people may be thinking again about what it really means to belong. Can Benin, even West Africa, win back its diaspora? From what Tonya describes, what it offers most is a sense of closure.
To be opening this new chapter for our ancestors and for the future. My ancestors were taken from home and shipped over here to America. And now here I am returning with my family. And what I mean by that is I'm returning. I'm still American. I'm still here. I'm not giving that up. But I'm also African. And now I'm going to figure out what that means. And I'm going to figure out how do we blend all of it for the greater good of the future that's coming. I will tell you, when I was in Benin and I stood there and I looked over that water, the ocean, I said to myself, wow, we survived, we thrived, and we came back. That is an incredibly empowering feeling. Much more so than thinking about what was done to us in the past. We've come back and we continue to thrive, and it's an amazing thing. And I know my ancestors are smiling.
This inquiry was presented by me, Tanya Beckett, produced by Daniel Rosny, researched by Maeve Schaffer, and the editor was Tom Bigwood. The technical producer was Nikki Edwards.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on that app and on YouTube. You're on CBC. Thanks for being here. It is 3 minutes to 6 a.m. We're on air till 8:37. And let's say hello to the team. Good morning, Corey Funk with the new hair, looking good. Corey directs the show and also will be on the air covering the commute. Abby Adiemi is our senior tech in the show. Good morning, Abby. Abby also covers the weather forecast. And Mr. Darren Marash, rounding out our In-Studio 15 team, is our producer of our YouTube stream if you're watching there. As I understand, some of you are, so good morning. It is in Winnipeg going to be sunny today, a high of 8, so pretty nice straight ahead day for us here in the city of Winnipeg. In the city of Brandon, sunny for you, a high of 10 degrees today, and up in Thompson, cloudy, and a high of 5. Let's go to Heather Wells now for news headlines.
Good morning. A Sapataway Cree Nation family says they want answers in the death of their sister, who they say was refused care and died. Naturel Cook says her sister, Shandy, who had been living with leukemia, went to Swan River Health Centre October 10th. She says Shandy was struggling to breathe and had been vomiting blood. She questions why her sister was turned away from the hospital that night and then died hours later. CO Silica has applied once again for a license to extract sand from southeast Manitoba. The Alberta Mining Company wants to drill below the surface of the arm of Springfield. Now, the province, you may recall, rejected its original proposal in 2024 over concerns it might affect drinking water and geological stability. We're going to hear what's different this time, coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news center this morning. Well, on the show today, if you've lost someone to substance use or you know someone struggling with addiction, they're setting up a new support line across the country to connect people with the help that they need. And this is those that would be supporting people. So stay tuned. We'll hear about that through a Manitoba lens. Also, a little bit later in the show, we have ongoing coverage. We've been hearing from people who are in support of universal screening for learning disabilities in schools for kids. Stay tuned to hear why the Manitoba Teacher Society feels differently and feels that kids could be are already being supported, and that should be grown moving forward, and it has to do with the teachers taking the lead and maybe more funding. So stay tuned. It's all coming up.
Today on Q.
To prepare for his latest role, the Irish actor Colin Farrell lived in a casino where gamblers would wager millions at one table. He'll tell you about what he observed there, his philosophy on acting, and about his dad, an Irish pro soccer player.
My father and I could kind of bond. It was kind of a common language that we had.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Hurricane Melissa is still pushing north. Just hours ago, it made landfall on eastern Cuba as a Category 3 storm. Its winds are still intense, more than 190 kilometers an hour. But the storm has lost power since it hit Jamaica yesterday. As Katie Nicholson tells us, officials are still assessing the damage.
The entire Jamaica has felt the brunt of Melissa.
Jamaica's Minister for Local Government, Desmond McKenzie, detailed the damage after Hurricane Melissa slammed into the island.
We have reports coming out of Black River of a number of families being trapped in their homes. And it was difficult for the rescue team to get there.
The fate of those families not immediately clear, but much of the damage was. Electric poles ripped from the ground. Landslides and floodwaters closed roads. The country's breadbasket, St. Elizabeth Parish, where the bulk of its food is produced, underwater. Just a year ago, Hurricane Beryl badly hit the same area, and it was just recovering. Brian Bogart is with the World Food Program, standing by to help.
The first time you're hit by a storm of this nature, it's devastating. The next time that a storm like this impacts the same communities, you can only imagine how difficult it will be for them.
Melissa was a historic Category 5 storm for Jamaica. Canadian Stephanie Brayford and her family were stranded at a resort as it passed through, witnessing its wrath.
Terrifying. Nothing like I've ever experienced, and I have experienced a tornado.
It will likely be days before Jamaica fully knows the extent of Melissa's damage, the most powerful and violent storm in its history. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Bank of Canada delivers its latest interest rate decision later this morning. The central bank is expected to announce a second consecutive cut. Canada's economy is showing signs of weakening in the face of U.S. tariffs and is only forecast to grow by a small amount. Randall Bartlett is Deputy Chief Economist at Desjardins.
We're expecting growth in the third quarter, again, broadly in line with the Bank of Canada's forecast from July. So it's going to be pretty muted and not feel great. So the Canadian economy is quite weak.
The Bank of Canada lowered its interest rate to 2.5% last month. It was its first cut since March. Israel has carried out another round of strikes on Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he ordered a forceful response to Hamas for what he called a violation of the U.S. brokered deal. The Civil Defense Agency in Gaza says the strikes have killed at least 104 people. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing has the latest from Jerusalem.
We were reading the news about Netanyahu's threats and the attack on Gaza, and then the attack happened right at our house. With blood still caked on Thaer al-Banna's face, he recounts the strike while perched on a hospital bed with no mattress. The world doesn't listen. It only watches and ignores, he says. Gaza City was the first hit Tuesday night. Palestinian Red Crescent workers were filmed searching the rubble. One woman was carried out to the street on a stretcher. At a hospital in Khan Yunis, the dead are unloaded, followed by a flood of grief. Two older women fold over a gurney, grasping at a body wrapped in a white shroud. U.S. President Donald Trump, speaking on board Air Force One, said the ceasefire is not at risk.
They killed an Israeli soldier, so the Israelis hit back, and they should hit back.
Johan Feldbaum, a 37-year-old reservist, was killed in Rafah Tuesday, inside Israeli-held territory. It's the second deadly attack on Israelis in the south during the ceasefire. Hamas is accused in both attacks but denies any involvement. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Drones have become a problem for Canadian prisons. Officials say smugglers are using them to deliver weapons, drugs, and other contraband to inmates. Now police and correctional staff in Kingston, Ontario have formed a team to fight back. Dan Takama has more.
A basketball stuffed with tobacco and cell phones, bundles of knives and drugs camouflaged with fake grass. Just some of the contraband drone pilots have tried to smuggle behind bars in Kingston.
Rival gangs are trying to control who can fly into prisons.
Sergeant Jonas Bonham is head of the local police intelligence unit, which has teamed up with correction staff to tackle drone smuggling. The task force is the first of its kind in Canada.
Kingston is a prison town, so it just made sense for us to join forces and start doing it together.
Correctional Service Canada says there were more than 1,000 reports of drone activity at prisons across the country last year. It's big business, as even items like pot or tobacco legal on the street are worth 10 to 25 times more inside.
It's mind-boggling. It's also scary.
Lee Chappelle spent decades as a federal inmate. He says drones mean more volume and more options when it comes to contraband.
You're talking anything from guns, phones, any illicit drug possible.
But the partnership in Kingston is having an impact. Investigators say they've managed to cut the number of local drone drops in half. Joel Blacklock is a senior project officer for the Correctional Service.
This task force is making a huge difference.
They're hoping other Canadian law enforcement agencies can learn from their experience and consider assembling a drone task force of their own. Dan Takama, CBC News, Kingston, Ontario.
A former deputy premier of Alberta is telling Premier Danielle Smith it's time to cut the separatism talk. Thomas Lukaszuk spent 3 months gathering signatures on a petition to end all separatist petitions.
We have signatures from every corner of this province, from every demographic in this province. The one thing that truly unites us as Albertans is our pride in being Canadian.
He and his team of volunteers collected more than 456,000 signatures from Albertans who say the province must remain a part of Canada. It was enough to fill up 61 boxes. The number of signatures is way more than what's needed to hold a referendum on the issue. But Lukaszuk says he wants the premier to skip a province-wide vote and just instead end the issue in the legislature. We are 100 days away from the Winter Olympics in Italy. Milano Cortina 2026 is considered to be the most geographically widespread Olympic Games in history. 4 sites spanning more than 22,000 kilometers. And after years of delays and controversy, Italy now appears to be on track to deliver. Megan Williams has the latest from Milan.
With a slow and often chaotic start, many in Italy feared the Milan Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics would be an Italianata, an Italian-style last-minute scramble. But the country's sprint to February seems to be paying off, a final push that could turn a risky gamble into a global showcase of Italian can-do energy. In Milan's Santa Giulia district, workers are racing to finish a 16,000-seat arena set for completion by mid-December and will host men's hockey before becoming a major concert venue. Nearby Olympic housing in a former rail yard is done, as pavilions at the city's main trade fair complex are being turned into rinks for women's hockey and speed skating. 400 kilometers away in Cortina d'Ampezzo, the new bobsled track, once mired in delays, environmental protests, and worries about costs, has been finished in record time. Many doubted it would be built at all, after skepticism from the IOC. But a surprise for a country where costs for public works often balloon. The bobsled track came in 25% under cost, though still with a hefty price tag of about 185 million Canadian dollars. With 100 days to go for the Winter Olympics, ticket sales are strong, topping 800,000, with hockey leading the pack and plenty of Canadians expected in the stands. Megan Williams, CBC News, Milan.
In the air to left field, but Straw is there and the Blue Jays win it.
That is the play that tied up the World Series. The Toronto Blue Jays won Game 4 last night in Los Angeles, and the Jays outlasted one of the best in the business, Dodgers pitcher Shohei Ohtani. A third-inning home run for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made the difference in the 6-2 win. The series is now tied at 2 games apiece and guarantees a Game 6 back at home in Toronto on Friday night. Game 5 goes tonight in L.A.
Okay, Blue Jays, let's play ball.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, bring on the Rangers, bring on the Royals, bring on the Astros, the Cubbies, and the Mets too.
Okay, don't bring on anyone else. The Dodgers are enough for us to deal with right now. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. You know where to find us. That's why you're here, right? It is 1 degree in Winnipeg. At least that's where we started from. We will see where the day is going to take us. And Abby's in with our forecast in a moment. This is your Wednesday morning show. Thanks for being here on October 29th. This hour on the show, we're going to talk about a new line that's being set up across the country. If you've lost someone to substance use or you know someone struggling with addiction, this is a support line for you to connect with others that will understand what that's like in families. So stay tuned. We'll have that discussion through a Manitoba lens. Also, Dr. Gupta today, filling in our medical column again. He's going to join us just before 7. Most of us know someone with a food allergy, or again, maybe you've got one. Studies show that introducing common allergens to babies can help. Now, you might remember there was a landmark study back in 2015 was the year. And now it's been 10 years. So they've been able to look at that and see the real impact of what this means when you introduce a common allergen. And they've had good success with this. So we're going to hear more about that and how it could change people's lives if they're living with those allergies. That's just before 7. Right now, Heather Wells joins us with a number of news stories, but a couple of headlines to start. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Sapataway Cree Nation family says they want answers in the death of their sister, who they say was refused care. Naturel Cook says her sister Shandy had been living with leukemia. She went to Swan River Health Center earlier this month on October 10th. Naturel says Shandy was struggling to breathe and had been vomiting blood. She questions why Shandy was turned away from the hospital only to die later that night. Manitoba's Advocate for Children and Youth says alcohol was involved in the majority of serious injury cases it investigated last year. The Advocate's annual report was tabled in the legislature yesterday ahead of today's official release. We're going to hear more about what was in that report coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, Heather, we have been starting the show talking about the game this week, and why not? It is the World Series. Canada has one baseball team, and they're in it. Did you watch last night?
I did, up until Vladdy's home run. Then I kind of breathed a sigh of relief and thought, they got it.
I was nervous the whole time, so I watched everything. Even down to one I opened for the 9th inning going, something could happen. Yeah. And then Varland actually a couple times balked on his pitch, and he was kind of going to throw to second to try to get the out, catch the runner off the bag. And then the runner got sent to third because he did it 3 times. So then I was like almost sitting up going, wait a minute.
I didn't know about that rule.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The sound was off. So this is my memory of what the rule I think is and why it happened. But yeah, the runner got to go to third. Anyway, Jays won. Doesn't matter. All good. And some of us got some sleep last night.
Yeah, you know what? I heard a report driving in today about how watching the Jays is increasing cortisol in Canadians. Like right across the country, we're all getting a little too anxious, and it's not good for us.
There will be a room full of people then from last night because the Gold Eyes had a watch party locally, which I thought was very cool. Yeah, so I'm sure there'll be more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells is back with news at 6:30. Let's say hello to the rest of the team here. That was my way of saying good morning and hello. I don't know what hello is, but Abby Adiyami's over there with weather. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Marcy. Another cool fall day across the province. Lots of sunshine on the way for the southern part of the province. While up north, we're going to be seeing more like cloudier and cooler temperatures with some light rain, and maybe some flurries will develop tonight in the north. north. But here in Winnipeg, chilly start around 1 degree right now, partly cloudy outside. Notice some foggy conditions on my way in. That should lift through the morning. Then we'll enjoy sunshine and light winds through the day. We warm up to 8, which is above seasonal for this time of the year. And then later tonight, we dropped around 2. In the southern part of the province, we're seeing 3 degrees around Brandon and Dauphin, minus 4 degrees in Brandon at this time, minus 3 in Dauphin, and 4 degrees in Gimli. Up north, we're seeing 2s and 3 degrees up there. Winnipeg right now, 1 and partly cloudy.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is here to update the commute for the morning. Hi.
Hello. Yes, with some light freezing rain into Dooley, you might see a little bit of slippery conditions on the highways up north. But otherwise, down south here, I'm going to just give some good traffic news for you. Actually, Abby told me on the way in this morning. Pembina, north-southbound, where there was once a lot of traffic over Abenoji-Mikana there, it's now clear. So you can go through there. It should be a lot smoother than it has been, for the last long while. If you do see something going on out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's get into this story about the National Peer Support Line to help people struggling with addiction, those that help loved ones. The phone line was launched by Moms Stop the Harm. It's a national network of mothers, parents who've been impacted in some way by addiction or substance use related deaths. It's being managed by trained operators with lived experiences. It's funded by Health Canada, the health minister being part of this announcement yesterday. Our first guest this morning, though, is Antoinette Gravel-Ouellette. She's the program coordinator for the Manitoba chapter. Good morning.
Good morning.
So who will use this support line? Who's it set up for?
The support line is set up nationally across Canada. And just as a caveat, I'm not only in Manitoba, but I'm also the national program coordinator for Moms Stop the Harm. And so with the line is set up for anybody who is struggling with the loss of a loved one due to substance-related harms. And also for those that have a loved one who are still struggling with substance use.
Why is it needed?
Well, it really came out of a number of years ago. We launched Healing Hearts and Holding Hope programs through Moms Stop the Harm. And Healing Hearts is for people that have a loved one who has died due to substance-related harms. And Holding Hope is for those who have loved ones still struggling. And what came out of that as we launched groups across Canada as well as within Manitoba is realizing that sometimes people would reach out or email us and just really wanted to talk to somebody. And so there's so many rural and remote areas where we aren't able to have programs. We do have some virtual programs, but just having a voice over the phone that understands, that is compassionate, that's been there, to provide that extra layer of support for anybody that's struggling with either one of those. And especially with grief, there's a lot of stigma, especially around substance-related deaths. And so having a peer who gets it, who's been there, who knows, and just that compassionate, loving, understanding, kind voice at the other end that says, I hear you.
We having talked to Manitoba families here around this, that the words you used, stigma come up a lot, but also shame. Families say that they know they shouldn't feel shame, but there's somehow that comes with it, and that probably grows out of the stigma. How often will the phone line be open to people? What are the hours right now?
Currently, the phone line is open on Thursdays and Fridays, and specifically in our time zone, it would be from 5 p.m. till 11 p.m.
Okay. Was there consideration to having those hours expanded or 24 hours, or where are you guys at with that?
We will be expanding it. We've started what we've called a soft launch, opening it up, really monitoring the calls and see what the need is. We will be expanding it in the future, but right now we're having it those 2 days a week.
What might the moment be where you want to encourage people, even if someone's listening and maybe there's a family that's never spoken about it, never reached out for peer support, but needs to? What might you say to a family about, when that moment might be right?
When the moment might be right
For
to reach
someone to
out.
pick up the phone and reach out. Yeah, I'm curious or maybe what you've heard from people. When is it that they call? Does it vary? Is it after the loss of someone? Is it maybe after someone's first gone in to get help? Or I just want to give some encouragement to families. There's probably no wrong time to call, but what are the typical moments when people decide, I need some help, I need some understanding?
And I think you're exactly have it. What you said, Marcia, is when somebody's lost a loved one, or even if somebody's struggling, because of the stigma and, as you alluded to, the shame, it takes a lot to pick up the phone, and so there's never a wrong time to pick up the phone, and we have trained volunteers that will guide the conversation. We part of our training, we did some roll calls so the volunteers also know what it's like to be on the other end and be somebody that's calling in. So calling in and not knowing what to say is okay, because often there's no words. And especially we've gotten a lot of the emails that we get reaching out for our groups, which also prompted the phone line, is, people will email and say, I just need to talk to somebody. And so this is a way that to sidestep the email, that they could pick up the phone and say, I don't know what to do. And that's okay. I don't know what to say. Or I'm running into, people that are trying to be kind and don't often understand the complexities of substance use or substance-related deaths.
Hmm. Just as a last question, Antoinette, you were talking about operators having lived experience, but also being trained. How are they trained?
We've done a number of different trainings with the Crisis and Trauma Institute, with Mental Health First Aid. We've developed manuals for scenarios and dealing with stigma and shame, and we've done a number of hours on in-house training, as I said, the role plays to come up with different scenarios if somebody's calling in and just looking for help. The other thing is the volunteers have a comprehensive list of resources if somebody's looking for something specific. Sometimes people just want to call just to be heard, and just to hear, you're not alone in this.
Yeah, and we're here for you. I appreciate you mentioning the resources here because navigating the system is a big part of this too. We'll have to leave our conversation there this morning. Thank you very much for being up early and being with us on CBC. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
That is Antoinette Gravel-Roulette. She's the program coordinator for Moms Stop the Harm nationally and also in charge of the Manitoba chapter. If you want to reach out and you want to learn about the national support line, or use it rather, it is 1-866-355-MSTH, Moms Stop the Harm. Operators, though, are up not today, but on Thursdays and Fridays from 5 p.m. till 11 p.m. our Winnipeg time.
North of North is in fashion, literally. CBC and the WAG are partnering to present Crafted on the Catwalk November 4th, a fashion show featuring cast members of the breakout comedy displaying designer clothes from Manitoba and the North. Then shop for fine handmade goods at Crafted Show and Sale November 7th to 9th. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more, including an exclusive North of North screening and meet and greet.
6:22 a.m. the time right now, clear and 1 degree. We're heading for a high of 8. It's going to be sunny in Winnipeg today. Let's talk money. The Bank of Canada may cut interest rates today for the second time in a row. As you might know, inflation rose to 2.4% in September. That's up 1.9% in August, up from that number rather. Meanwhile, ongoing trade uncertainty with the states continues to weigh on the economy. The expected move from the central bank aims to support economic growth amid signs of slowing activity. So where are we headed next? Viet Vu's here for his take on it. He's manager of economic research at the DAIS at Toronto Metropolitan University and on Zoom. Hello to you.
Good morning, Marcy. I'm glad I didn't have to stay up until 3 a.m. to watch the Jays last night so I can talk interest rates with you.
Right? I was thinking that too. I'm like, oh, this game's going quickly. It was 20 after 8 and they were in the 6th, I think. I'm like, this is awesome. So let's talk about this. Why are they expected to cut interest rates again? The Bank of Canada is. Why is this happening now? Just to sort of give more context to what I've said.
Well, here's an analogy to understand how the bank has been acting. Let's say you've been feeling unwell and that you went to see your doctor a couple of weeks ago, and the doctor told you, I see some signs of illness, but let's observe and see if you get better in a week. That's where the bank was at a couple of months ago, a wait and see approach. But it turns out you didn't get better. And when you went back to your doctors, they finally prescribed you some first-line antibiotics and tells you to come back to see if things still don't improve. That is where we are at the moment. So the bank is still taking modest steps and monitoring the side effects very closely, in this case inflation, if you will, to see if those modest steps can help improve the Canadian economy before they consider any more drastic actions.
I love that analogy, by the way. We're on antibiotics right now. So when you think about the economy overall, then how much do interest rate changes actually help during a slowdown? We've talked about this before, but what's your sense of it in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the matter is when it comes to combating economic downturn, interest rate changes are always about buying time and numbing the pain, or treating the symptoms, if you will, rather than solving fundamental problems. It gives the economy and the government space to solve the actual issue that is creating the downturn. In 2008, that was the housing and the financial market in the US. In 2020, it was COVID. Now, it's trade uncertainties. So rate changes is a nice relief and create breathing room, but our economy still needs to reorganize to address the shifting trade landscapes.
So what do you think Canada needs right now then to keep the economy on track?
Well, in a truly ideal scenario, the one thing we could all use right now is for the United States to sort itself out. And look, I know that's unrealistic, but as we saw last week when Donald Trump ripped up a trade negotiations over an ad, we are dealing with someone who's behaving like they're 12 years old. So as much as we can look towards CUSMA renegotiations to solve our trade woes, I can't imagine that going smoothly regardless of what we do. Building up our economy and decoupling us from the US, while noble, takes time. So unless the US sorts itself out, the best that we can do is to endure the short-term pain at the moment and focus on how we build our economy up so it's no longer so dependent on the United States.
What are the risks if the Bank of Canada lowers interest rates further? Like we talk about this often as this could help, but what are the risks of doing this?
Well, the risk that the bank is always looking out for is for the lower interest rates to push inflation back up. In Canada, the Bank of Canada's mandate is ultimately about ensuring stable long-term price changes. The bank does that by controlling the interest rate, or how much it costs to buy money, a price of money, if you will. And it turns out, making it easier for people to spend doesn't immediately mean that there's a lot more stuff for people to spend it on. And inflation ticks up when people want to spend on stuff that just doesn't exist yet. Now, lower interest rates also spur investment, but that only leads to more things being made tomorrow, not today. And this is where the bank is careful about how quickly or aggressively they lower rate, because they don't want the economic stimulation to add further inflationary pressure.
So when you think of the average Canadian, some people will be quote unquote winners in this, some will be not. Mortgages, loans, saving money, how do you think who's going to be impacted in the greatest way? Maybe not just with this rate cut, but if there's further ones through the winter, because as you said, the States doesn't look like it's budging.
And Marcy, you're exactly right? Because just as with any changes, there will be those who gain and some who will lose out. Those of you who are looking to renew your mortgages or are already on a variable rate mortgage will see your mortgage rate become lower, and quite quickly too. On the other side, if you have money in a savings account or an investment account that is sensitive to the bank's target rate, you'll also see your return go down. But we have to remind ourselves why the Bank of Canada is lowering interest rates. The bank only lowers rates when the economy is doing badly. And so I certainly hope that this rate cut, alongside other actions that institutions like the bank engages in, will allow many Canadians just a tiny bit of relief where you don't have to worry as much about your retirement savings or your kids' future, for example.
Thank you very much, Viet Vu. Take care. See you again.
Thank you.
Viet Vu with us live via Zoom, the manager of economic research at the dais at the Toronto Metropolitan University. Well, we will have more on the potential interest rate cut coming up with Hallie Cotnam in business news. So that is still ahead in this half hour of the show. Pardon me, after the news, next half hour. Also, she has a story about how the tariff wars are affecting carving jack-o'-lanterns. Affecting pumpkins, that is. So we're going to hear a little bit more about how this ties into Halloween tariff wars with Hallie. That's coming up right after your 6:30 news. Right now, on the commute this morning, things are looking pretty good. I always like to say so far so good so early, but call us if you need. It is 204-788-3093. That is your commuter line. And just looking at conditions around the province, you shouldn't have too much trouble out there. It's mostly going to be clear. We don't have a wet day here, but we do have in southern Manitoba, that is. But in Tuduli Lake, if you are up that way, there's light freezing rain. So that always gets mentioned not just as a weather note, but also as a potential travel note as well. So take it easy up there. Otherwise, as I mentioned, anywhere you are in Manitoba, you can always use that commuter line. You can call Corey at 204-788-3093. And your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 6:30. It's a little brisk out there. It's 1 degree. A bit of a breeze at 15 kilometers an hour. It's going to be sunny, though, and still warmer than seasonal. The normal high this time of year is 4. Today's high is 8. A Sapataway Cree Nation family says they want answers in the death of their sister, who they say was refused care and died. Naturel Cook says her sister Shandy, who had been living with leukemia, went to the Swan River Health Centre on October 10th. Naturel says Shandy was struggling to breathe, she was vomiting blood, and she now questions why Shandy was turned away from the hospital only to die later that night.
Nurses racially profiled her as an addict coming to look for more drugs. So then they denied her help, and then she got sent home.
Naturel says her family wants an apology for her sister's death. The Regional Health Authority says it is investigating, but cannot comment on specific patients. CO Silica is taking another stab at getting a license to mine for sand in Manitoba. The Alberta company has filed a new proposal. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, it hopes this one will be more acceptable to environment officials and to politicians.
CO Silica says it'll drill fewer wells over a smaller area and extract less sand than its original mining proposal. The province rejected that last year over concerns about the effects on drinking water and geological stability. CO Silica President Carla Devlin says the new proposal addresses the environmental concerns. Mining opponent Tangi Bell says she's not buying it.
They plan to mine in the same location, which is Manitobans' drinking water.
Bell urged the province to reject the new proposal. Premier Wab Kinew is non-committal.
It'll go through the process.
This new CO Silica proposal comes after Manitoba's ethics commissioner ruled former Premier Heather Stephenson and 2 PC cabinet ministers tried to approve the original plan after they lost the 2023 election to Kinew's NDP. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The number of deaths investigated by Manitoba's Advocate for Children and Youth has gone down for the second straight year. The Advocate's annual report was tabled in the legislature yesterday ahead of today's official release. It says it was notified of 206 deaths in the fiscal year ending in March, but only 74 were within its scope for a review. That is down from 90 last year and 100 the year before. The Advocate's scope covers Manitobans aged 20 and under who are receiving a reviewable service, most commonly because they're in the care of Child and Family Services. Well, Hurricane Melissa is now roaring through eastern Cuba as a Category 3 storm.
Dios mío.
Video showing people wading through ankle-deep water as water rushes into the doorways. At least 700,000 people across Cuba are being moved to higher ground. Meanwhile, in Jamaica, emergency officials are in the process of evaluating damage from Melissa's arrival yesterday afternoon. It made land as a Category 5, swamping coastal communities, knocking out power. At least 500,000 people are without electricity in Jamaica this morning. Schools and businesses are closed. Hospitals hospitals are damaged. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Well, Blue Jays fans are waking up happy this morning.
In the air to left field, but Straw is there, and the Blue Jays win it.
The Blue Jays winning Game 4 of the World Series last night. 6-2 is the final score. The series is now tied at 2 wins apiece. Among the highlights, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting a 2-run homer off Shohei Ohtani in the 3rd inning. So Game 5 goes tonight, again in Los Angeles. The Jays are starting rookie Trey Yosavich, and for the Dodgers, it is Blake Snell. Now, Winnipeg baseball fans turned out in droves for a Blue Jays watch party put on by the Winnipeg Goldeyes last night. Also there, Goldeyes catcher Kevin Garcia. He says even though he's from California, he's rooting for the Jays, partly because manager John Schneider coached him when he was in Toronto's minor league system.
Super cool dude, down to earth, players coach. Everyone that played for him loved him, and super happy for him to see him out there in the World Series now.
Garcia hopes Jays Fever helps more young kids get involved in baseball in Canada. Well, to hockey and back in the win column.
Kyle Connor, shot scores! Connor in overtime, and the Jets take it 4-3.
Kyle Connor on TSN, just 46 seconds into overtime, lifting the Jets to a win in Minnesota. And after the game,
you almost got to be patient. You don't want to open something up, a good gap. And I thought we did that. We kind of pressured when there was loose puck there, neutral zone, and got to turn around, got some speed, and great entry to J-Mo and Scheif. And I just found some quiet ice and, just trying to get it to a screen, saw the little hole on the far side.
See, good things happen when you find that quiet ice. Connor Hellebuck stopping 33 shots. The Jets now return home to host Chicago tomorrow night. You can find the latest news updated throughout your day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into the forecast. What do you know, Abby?
We're looking at sunshine on its way for most areas and a cool stat that warms slightly this afternoon. The south is going to be staying sunny and mild, while up north we're going to see more like cloudy conditions and cooler air. Winnipeg right now, 1 degree. It's cloudy at the Forks. The sunshine will return this morning once those foggy conditions lift, and then we'll see light winds. We warm up to about 8 degrees in the city today. Tracking conditions around the Pembina Valley region, more than wind cloud to the Morris all the way down to the U.S. border. Similar to Winnipeg, warming up to about 8 today. Also sunshine on its way. In the Westman region, Brandon tracking towards Nippo. It's clear right now and cold at -4 with light southerly winds. That will turn sunny later, and then you see some mild conditions in the afternoon. You warm up to about 10 degrees later. For the Parkland region, Dauphin, Russell, Roblin, we're looking at -3 there. Clear conditions you're enjoying. Sunshine also on its way. Then you see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds later. Highs around 9 degrees. A few showers and flurries possible later tonight for that Parkland region. In the Interlake region, we're looking at 4 degrees in Gimli at this time. Partly cloudy with calm air. That should clear through the morning. We'll see you warm up to about 8 degrees later. Now going towards the flame flowing surrounding communities. 3 degrees there. Partly cloudy with a mild breeze. Cloudy with a good chance of rain later tonight. You warm up near 5 degrees. Thompson, you're cool and cloudy at 2 with light breeze. It's going to stay cloudy through the day. Highs will be around 5 degrees, and then tonight you deep to about -1. Well, for Churchill, all the way towards York region, we are seeing 2 degrees there. Cloudy morning. It's going to become windy at some point. There's a slim chance of showers this afternoon. You warm up to 5 degrees, and then later temperatures will drop to about 0 with a mix of rain and flurries tonight. But for today, it's more like calm and bright in the southern part of the province, and we'll see some cloudy and cooler air in the northern parts of the province. Winnipeg right now, it's 1 and partly cloudy.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into the commute. That's why Corey's here.
Yes, and so far, no major issues to report. I will say some good news from Abby, who from his drive in this morning. He says Pembina over when you're driving over Abinojimikina there was construction for a long time, but those barricades are now gone. So it should be a much smoother commute for folks going north and south on Pembina this morning. But if you're out there, you see something else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line and let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
I just want to make a quick mention before we turn to business news this morning about a story that got quite a lot of reaction. Yesterday on the show, we heard from two things. We heard from a young girl who talked about living with dyslexia. She's like in grade school and what that's like. And she was at an event where there's an MLA who's looking for a bill that would test kids, universal screening for kids between kindergarten and grade 3, which is something that doesn't happen right now. And then we also heard from someone that was diagnosed at the age of 43 with ADHD and dyslexia, and she talked about that and what difference it would have made if she had known through school. And so today we're still going to continue digging into that story, but we've had a great deal of feedback from people saying they appreciated people sharing about what this is like. And, I think there was this moment where that woman who was diagnosed as an adult talked about how she got by memorizing everything so nobody would know, but then at some point it just became impossible for her to continue. And so there was a lot of feedback on the story. So just want to mention we have another angle on the story coming up this morning, and it's an interesting one because later on in the show, this is after 8 o'clock, we are going to talk to the president of the Manitoba Teachers Society about this, around universal screening for learning disabilities. And we're going to hear that perspective from them. They say that may not be the answer to be helping more kids and getting kids diagnosed and getting the help that they need. Teachers being involved in a different way might be the answer, and funding for that might be part of the answer. But we'll find out why MTS is not necessarily in support of universal screening as it's been laid out in this bill. So that is coming up later on Information Radio. And now it is time for our business report. Hallie Cottonham's been standing by. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's talk about the big day for borrowers and economists. We just had an interview about this, but we need all the perspectives. So with interest rate decisions on both sides of the border, what are you thinking today is going to look like?
Yeah, both the Bank of Canada and the U.S. Federal Reserve expected to lower rates by 0.25%. The idea? To stimulate the economy by making it less expensive to borrow money. Say, for example, a mortgage or a car loan, or maybe to expand your business. In Canada, most economists expect Tiff Macklem to look past the recent uptick in inflation. Marcy, we've spoken about this. It's now 2.4%, up from 1.9%. If this comes to pass in less than 2 hours now, it would be a second consecutive interest rate cut. Many say designed to offset the impacts of the tariff war, and it would bring the benchmark rate down to 2.25%. Now, in the U.S., the Fed also expected to cut rates to try and jumpstart hiring. When Jerome Powell announced a cut last month, he cited a slowdown in the labor market. It's interesting because the official jobs numbers are not available to him to help him make this decision this time around because of the U.S. government shutdown. In other financial news, some of the heaviest hitters are going to be declaring earnings today, including Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft. Tomorrow, it's Apple and Amazon's turn. By the way, Amazon shares rose slightly, 1%, after the company announced it was cutting 14,000 corporate jobs so it can spend more on AI investments. Other companies that are cutting, UPS revealed yesterday it's cutting 48,000 jobs, including 14,000 managers. Paramount is laying off 1,000 workers today. Target says it's cutting 8% of its workforce. There's a slew of corporate announcements talking about cuts, not only cuts that are coming, but cuts that have been happening over the past quarter, and they're just making those announcements now. And speaking of jobs losses, Canada Post has laid off dozens of managers as it continues to try and cut costs as part of its government-mandated restructuring. But it also announced that it's returning to the bargaining table with Cup W this week with the assistance of a mediator.
You have another story this morning, and this one's about the value of art to the bottom line, right?
Yeah, a new report from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. It says every dollar the government invests in the arts generates $29 in economic activity. This is research done by the Business Data Lab, which calculated the arts and culture sector contributed $65 billion to the economy last year. It used StatsCan data in its analysis, and it divided the arts into 6 categories, big tent here: heritage and libraries, live performances, visual and applied arts, written and published works, audiovisual and interactive media. In my mind, I'm thinking, video games per se, and also sound recordings. So covers a lot of territory. The study reveals the arts sector is growing faster than Canada's economy overall, 8% over the past 3 years. It says since 2011, This sector has outpaced the growth of key industries such as oil and gas, construction, and manufacturing. So it's making this case that every dollar the government spends is worth the investment.
And finally, you have a story about tariff wars and how they're affecting something that a lot of us see around Halloween.
Yeah, it turns out those plastic pumpkin carving kits that are sold seasonally, I personally don't buy them, but they are for sale every Halloween. Most of them are made in China, and now they're facing import tariffs into the U.S. near 60%. So retail analysts took a look at popular Halloween items and found a year-over-year increase of up to 300%. At these tariff levels, Marcy, the importer is now paying tariffs and fees which represent more than half the item's price. And I have an example for you. There's a product called the Pumpkin Masters Extreme Strobe Light. Kind of a fancy way of lighting up your jack-o'-lantern, and certainly a step up from the tea lights that we use. But since 2022, it's sold for about $1.62. But this year, at one point, it was selling for $6.99. So it's not big money, but the increase is the story here. The company behind Pumpkin Masters says it looked into reshoring its manufacturing into the U.S., which is what President Trump wants folks to do, but it can't make a business case for it because of the cost of labor. And finally, the National Retail Federation predicts that Halloween spending is going to hit a record 114 US per person. That's 158 Canadian. But people aren't necessarily buying more stuff. It's just the stuff they normally buy is more expensive.
All right, Hallie, thank you. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy.
With Business News, that's Hallie Cottenham, 6:44 a.m. She joins us every morning on InfoRad at this time. Well, next on the show, we want to get into a report that you might have heard about this week. Canada's hunger crisis is, quote, relentlessly growing in the wrong direction, end quote. That comes from the CEO of Food Banks Canada describing their newest report, as I mentioned, out this week, the 2025 hunger count. Now, Vince Barletta is president and CEO locally here of Harvest Manitoba. He joined Up to Speed host Faith Fundal to share the Manitoba perspective on this. And here's how he characterized the need within our province.
Well, Faith, we've been seeing the same upward trend here in Manitoba and across the country. I know you had our good friend Kirsten Beardsley on from Food Banks Canada talking about the national picture, 2.2 million Canadians a month going to a food bank, and it's up here in Manitoba as well, almost 65,000 visits in the March of 2025. That's a new record and big year-over-year growth.
Has the average food bank user changed over that time?
Well, I think that's been the biggest thing that we've seen, Faith, is really the people that are coming to a food bank. And if you talked about a decade or 15 years ago, you would have really been talking about an individual on EIA benefits, the unemployed, single individuals. And now what we're seeing is the typical profile of someone going to a food bank in Manitoba is someone that has a child and a job. And that is a much bigger demographic of people to be dealing with here in Manitoba. And really that same trend is showing up across the country.
Have you, when you look at food banks needing to say no, how often has that happened where people have to be turned away?
Well, I hear it's happening increasingly across the country. Thankfully, here in Manitoba, we don't have to say no. We always find a spot for people to get into a food bank. Now, sometimes it takes us longer than we'd like. Instead of them waiting 2 or 3 days, they might be waiting 5 or 6. We'd like to try and improve that. And we still have communities, Faith, in Manitoba that we aren't able to serve yet. And that's why we're looking at expanding our facilities as well so that we can serve even more Manitobans who need to access a food bank.
Right. I think the last time you were on the program, we talked about getting some money to increase the number of fridges, for example, at one of the locations there. The national campaign calls for a shift in the public's perception on this. How do you think Manitobans see this food crisis?
Well, I think that people are starting to see it for the broad-based long-term crisis that it's really become here in Manitoba and across the country. And, we all go to the grocery store, Faith, and I think no one's been untouched by the rising costs of food. And look, for so many people, there are the non-negotiable expenses, your rent, your transportation, your medical costs. And what's left is what you have at the grocery store. And increasingly, that's less and less money, and that money buys less and less food. And so it's putting families in a bad spot. And I think we see that struggle all across our community.
In our last half hour, I asked Kirsten Beardsley who needs to be convinced or what's one thing that needs to be done. And she pointed to changes to the federal EI program. Who do you think needs to be convinced to help address all of this from your unique perspective?
Well, we spend a lot of time talking to government, certainly here in Manitoba with our provincial government. And there's a wide range of policies from housing affordability to income benefits to employment training. Again, many folks that use a food bank have a job and they're trying trying to get skills development so they can get into higher paid employment, school nutrition, the specific issues to do with Northern and First Nations nutrition. So Manitoba's got some unique challenges, but, Food Banks Canada has been doing some great work on the federal level, particularly around issues like the Canada Disability Benefit for so many, tens of thousands of Manitobans having a disability as a life sentence to poverty. And we see many of them showing up at food banks too. So we need to do better here in Manitoba and across the country.
Talk more about the Manitoba, what's different in Manitoba. What are those challenges that you talked about that might not be the same nationally?
Well, we do see many of the same trends that we see in some of the major urban centers around the country. Certainly housing affordability, perhaps not at the same magnitude as Vancouver or Toronto, but we certainly see those challenges here big time. And uniquely in Manitoba, Harvest is the first food bank in Canada that was working with Nutrition North to get food to food banks in remote First Nations communities in the north. And now we're serving over 8 of them on a monthly basis and more to come. So there are some unique challenges and opportunities that we're working with our Indigenous community and Indigenous leaders to face, including standing up a new food bank in partnership with the Mama Wichita Center here in the west end of Winnipeg. So, there's a lot of activity that's going on here in the city that I think is a positive sign for the future, but we sure have a long way to go to get to the root of the issue.
What do you think people should think about as we end this conversation in context of the 2025 hunger count?
Well, we want people to recognize that there's a challenge. We want people to think about those issues of poverty and food security. And also, these organizations like Harvest Manitoba and food banks around the country, they rely on the generosity of people. So if you and your family are able and you're doing all right, think of supporting your local food bank, especially as we come into the holiday season.
So that was Vince Barletta, President and CEO of Harvest Manitoba, talking about the latest 2025 hunger count. That's the national picture of hunger and need across the country. We will get a Manitoba-specific snapshot coming up as well. So obviously we report on that as we get near into the when that comes out next month. He was in conversation there, Vince was, with CBC's Faith Fundell and Up to Speed. And I also want to mention when it comes to giving, Make the Season Kind, CBC Manitoba's Day of Giving is scheduled for December, as always, and it will support Harvest and all of its member agencies across Manitoba.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
9 minutes to 7 o'clock. Today's the day. So today is the deadline for Future 40. Don't overthink it. Get in those nominations. And we look forward to celebrating people here. Well, next on the show in our medical column, severe food allergies can be scary and life-altering, whether it's nuts, wheat, dairy, shellfish, or any number of things. There is new research, though. It shows that a 2015 change in guidelines when doctors started to recommend that caregivers introduce common allergens early is making a difference. I spoke with health columnist Dr. Samir Gupta about it after the show yesterday.
Good morning, Marcy.
So I mentioned these allergy guidelines that really got turned on their head in 2015. What was the recommendation up to that point?
Yeah, so before 2015, the traditional teaching in medicine, including what I was taught in medical school, was to minimize exposure to foods that could potentially cause anaphylaxis, particularly in young kids. And that was based on a theory that early exposure might trigger what's called sensitization. And that's when the immune system sort of inappropriately categorizes a food as a threat and forms antibodies against it, which is what makes the child allergic. So up until the early 2000s, medical guidelines recommended avoiding feeding children any peanuts or similar allergenic foods until about the age of 3. But what was actually seen in parts of the world that followed that avoidance strategy, if anything, was an increasing trend in childhood food allergies. So by around 2008, that was recognized and that guidance disappeared from the guidelines, but it wasn't clear at that point what we should actually be doing. Now, at the same time, we started seeing these observational studies showing that kids who had had earlier childhood exposures to these allergenic foods actually had lower chances of becoming allergic to them. So that's when people started questioning that old dogma around avoidance. And one of the key observations was that peanut allergies were about 10 times more common in Jewish children living in the UK than they were in Jewish children living in Israel. And because they had very similar genetic backgrounds, it had to be something in the environment. And what they discovered was that there was this very popular snack given to infants in Israel called bamba. And that is essentially a corn puff made with peanut butter. Whereas babies in the UK seldom had any peanut exposure before the age of 1. And that observation set the stage for a groundbreaking trial called the LEAP trial.
So interesting. So how did that actual groundbreaking early study work?
Yeah, so that was a UK trial, and it was a randomized controlled trial. And they basically took about half the kids and assigned them to consume that bamba snack regularly, starting as early as 4 months of age. And for the other half, they were told to avoid peanuts until at least the age of 5. And what they found was that the kids who had the bamba had an 80% lower chance of going on to develop a peanut allergy. So overnight, as you said, that study turned the field on its head. And it turned out that early childhood exposure wasn't causing sensitization, it was inducing what's called tolerance. In other words, by being exposed to those foods while the immune system was still developing, the body was able to recognize that they were not, in fact, a threat. So right after this, groups around the world issued a guideline update, and they basically said, hey, we've had it wrong all along. What you should actually be doing is giving kids these kinds of foods early in life, anywhere from 4 to 6 months, and rather than avoiding them. And that initial guidance in 2015 was for the highest risk kids, and it was updated in 2017 for moderate kids. And since then, since 2021, we've had a recommendation for all kids to do this.
Now, what happened then? Let's bring this, up to today. What happened with the rates of childhood allergies after those new guidelines started to take effect?
Yeah, so, like any new medical recommendation, it took some time. This was a big change. But that's what brings us to the study published last week. And this is a U.S. study where they looked at primary care electronic health records. And they tried to figure out what was happening with the rate of new food allergy diagnoses before versus after this guideline and this research. And so when they compared the period of time before 2015, that's before the first guideline and before the study was published, to the period after the second guideline update in 2017, there was a 45% relative drop in peanut allergies and a 37% drop in any food allergy. So that's thousands of kids who would have developed food allergies but avoided them as a result of that study and the guidelines.
So what's the practical advice that you might offer caregivers out there when it comes to food allergens, given everything you've said?
Yeah, so, always talk to your doctor about your particular circumstances. But as it stands, even for the highest risk kids, the current advice is to introduce these allergenic foods anywhere from age 4 to 6 months. And that means not just peanuts, but other nuts, other foods that commonly cause allergies like dairy and soy, wheat, sesame, egg, fish, shellfish. Now, the kid has to be developmentally ready for solids. They should have tolerated typical things like cereal, fruits, vegetables. And you start them with just an initial taste of one of these foods. Always do it at home, not in a daycare or a restaurant. And if there's no reaction, then you can gradually increase the amount. And obviously use common sense. So, kids choke on nuts. You wouldn't use whole nuts. You use a nut butter, not chunky peanut butter, something very smooth, usually mixed into a puree. And once you've introduced it and it's gone well, the key is to keep regularly exposing them to that food to maintain the tolerance.
If someone does have, though, a severe food allergy, are there any options for treatment?
Yeah, that's tough. And, what we recommend is avoidance. But if you have anaphylaxis to peanuts, that can be really tough. Peanuts are everywhere, and that can really impact people's quality of life. So there are newer approaches. The big one that we're learning more about is desensitization. And that's when you take a tiny dose of something and gradually expose the person to increasing doses. That can be done with oral challenges. It can be done under the tongue. It can actually be done through the skin as well. The premise there is to get the body used to that tiny amount of allergen so that if you do have an inadvertent exposure, it won't be life-threatening. So I'd say that's an area of active research. We're still sort of figuring out the right timing, the dosing, the formulation for that. But it does offer a lot of hope for people with severe food allergies.
All right, Dr. Gupta, thank you.
My pleasure, Marcy.
Filling in for Dr. Bardwaj on our medical column today, that is Dr. Samir Gupta. It is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock. Here's Heather with headlines.
CO Silica has applied once again for a license to extract sand from southeast Manitoba. The Alberta Mining Company wants to drill below the surface of the arm of Springfield. The province rejected its original proposal in 2024 over concerns about the effects on drinking water. The new proposal calls for fewer mines over a smaller area, but mining opponent Tanji Bell says the new proposal is no different than the original. We'll hear more from her. Manitoba's Advocate for Children and Youth says alcohol was involved in the majority of serious injury cases it investigated last year. The Advocate's annual report was tabled in the legislature yesterday ahead of today's official release. I'll be back with more on that in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Clear and 1 degree right now in Winnipeg. Sunny and a high of 8 is where we're headed. Brandon's clear -4 right now, and Thompson's cloudy and 2 degrees, but also sunny in Brandon today at least. And up in Thompson, you'll have a cloudy day ahead. We do have a traffic note from Daniel, who called our CBC commuter line on the turnoff from southbound 59 to the eastbound South Perimeter. There is a 2-car collision. It's blocking the right lane. You can get around, but it will cause some backups. So that's the turnoff from southbound 59 to eastbound South Perimeter. Thanks for the call, Daniel. 788-3093 if you want to reach us with an update. Well, you might recall our community reporter, speaking of traffic and traveling, doing a story years ago about the Northern Gateway project, all to improve connectivity and charging stations to travel in Manitoba north. We're going to find out what stage that project is at coming up in the next hour of the show. Also in the next hour, after being laid off after mat leave, a Winnipeg woman decided to turn her hobby into a growing business. And boy, she's doing well. Stay tuned for her story.
Today on The Current.
Here we have the assistance of robots working alongside with our associates.
I'm Catherine Cullen. Amazon is growing its operations in this country. About 50,000 Canadians now work for the company. They're also automating operations, and the plan is for 3/4 of workers to actually be robots. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Hurricane Melissa is blowing through eastern Cuba now, and the Category 2 storm is bringing a lot of rain. A video shows people wading through ankle-deep water as it rushes through their doorways. At least 700,000 people in Cuba have been evacuated to higher ground. And in Jamaica, officials are still evaluating the damage. Melissa was a Category 5 hurricane when it made landfall there yesterday. Desmond McKenzie is Minister of Local Government.
Jamaica's gone through what I can call one of its worst periods. Our infrastructure has been severely compromised.
At least 500,000 people have lost power in Jamaica. Hospitals and schools have been damaged, and many areas of the island have been cut off by flooding. The Bank of Canada is expected to cut its key interest rate later this morning. It would be the second consecutive cut by Canada's central bank. Many economists say that could help boost growth in the economy in the face of U.S. tariffs. But like many Canadians, the bank is also waiting to see what is in next week's federal budget. Senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem has made it clear there's only so much the central bank can do to help Canada get out of the current crisis.
While monetary policy can't offset the negative effects of tariffs, positive structural reform could.
In a speech earlier this month, Macklem sent that not-so-veiled message to the federal government. Interest rates may lessen the burden for households and businesses, but Macklem says what's needed now is fiscal policy, the building of major infrastructure projects to help diversify the Canadian economy.
We could have done this without U.S. tariffs, but the loss of incomes and growth now makes this all the more imperative.
All the more imperative because even if Canada has avoided an outright recession, Desjardins Deputy Chief Economist Randall Bartlett says the economy is only forecast to grow by a tiny amount.
We're expecting growth in the third quarter, again, broadly in line with the Bank of Canada's forecast from July. So it's going to be pretty muted and not feel great. So the Canadian economy is quite weak.
So he says the bank will likely cut rates this morning, but also make it clear it's waiting to see where and how aggressively the federal government spends in next week's budget. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is now in South Korea ahead of the APEC summit. U.S. President Donald Trump is there too, and he sat across from Carney at dinner just hours ago. But as Murray Brewster reports, U.S. trade relations continue to be a sore spot for the Prime Minister.
And I'm sure there's much more we can do together.
Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong renewing his friendship with Canada's Mark Carney over breakfast this morning.
So in this more complex and uncertain global environment, I think like-minded countries like Canada and Singapore should cooperate. The cooperation is even more important now than ever before.
Both Wong and Carney will take their message of freer and fairer trade to a bigger table at the APEC summit. As Carney arrived in South Korea, a reminder of his troubles with the United States. Air Force One was parked in front of his plane. U.S. President Donald Trump was here ahead of him. Trump appears to be entering APEC ready to make concessions, or at least adjust tariffs, to secure a broader deal with China. No matter which way you look at it, Canada is in a tough spot. Trump will not have any discussions with Carney at the moment. Trade talks with the U.S. are on ice. At the same time, the Trump administration is not keen on Canada making concessions to China, for example, on electric vehicles. Jonathan Berkshire Miller is an expert at the Pendulum Geopolitics Group.
And I know it's hard for anyone to think beyond the sometimes 5-minute spectrum with the United States right now. I do believe that we need to be thinking creatively about what the 5 to 10 year relationship with the U.S. and how China interplays with that.
The Prime Minister is slated to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping at APEC on Friday. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Busan, South Korea.
Usually gatherings of the Canadian American Business Council are networking affairs. They celebrate the Canada-U.S. relationship, but an event at the National Gallery of Canada on Monday turned nasty. CBC News spoke to multiple witnesses who say U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra launched into a tirade at Ontario's Trade Representative David Patterson. One person said the U.S. ambassador seemed to be upset about Ontario's anti-tariff ad. They said Hoekstra used the F word and also mentioned Ontario Premier Doug Ford by name. In a statement to CBC News, the U.S. Embassy declined to comment. Voters in the Netherlands are choosing their next government. Today's election is considered high stakes. It is a test of whether a populist movement in Europe can expand or has reached its peak. Recent polls suggest it will be a tight race among the leading anti-immigration party and those who are center-right and center-left. Julia Chapman has more.
Politics in the Netherlands is extremely fragmented. 16 parties are predicted to win seats in parliament, meaning a coalition is almost guaranteed. Led by anti-immigrant populist Geert Wilders, the far-right PVV, or Party for Freedom, is projected to secure the most seats. But it's lost ground since the last election. The PVV is the reason a vote is taking place. It pulled out of the governing coalition earlier this year, wanting tougher action on migration. It's one of the main issues motivating Dutch voters, along with healthcare and housing costs. Left-wing candidate Frans Timmermans says Wilders has mired the Netherlands in hatred. He called on voters to put the Wilders era behind them. After the PVV collapsed the government, other parties have ruled out working with it. So even if it wins the most votes, it may not be involved in governing. Sarah de Lange from the University of Leiden says the PVV is pushing other parties to the right, including the Conservative People's Party for Freedom and Democracy, or VVD.
So especially the VVD has moved to the right on immigration significantly and has also, like the radical right across Europe, taken up positions that are sometimes seen as unconstitutional.
The Netherlands has been governed by coalitions for more than a century. Negotiations on forming a government can take months. Julia Chapman, CBC News, London.
In Brazil, we are expecting an update from authorities about a raid on a drug trafficking gang in Rio de Janeiro. About 2,500 police officers and soldiers conducted the raid. They arrested dozens of people and suspects, and shootouts erupted across sprawling favelas. At least 64 people are dead, including 4 police officers. That makes it the most lethal police operation in Rio's history. And it comes just days before Brazil hosts the UN's COP30 climate conference. A Toronto mom says things took an unpredictable turn when her 12-year-old son asked Tesla's AI chatbot a question about soccer. She says the conversation suddenly turned sexual. And as Idil Musa reports, she's now warning other parents.
I did not expect that this could happen.
Farah Nasser says she was driving her children home from school when her 12-year-old son asked Tesla's AI chatbot which soccer player it preferred, Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi.
My son was very excited to hear that the chatbot thought Ronaldo was the better soccer player.
The former journalist says there was a little messy trash talking by the chatbot, a joke about Ronaldo scoring by her son, and then
the chatbot said to my son, "Why don't you send me some nudes?" I was at a loss for words. Why is a chatbot asking my children to send naked pictures in our family car?
Nasser's family has owned a Tesla Model 3 electric sedan since 2022. But Grok, the AI chatbot created by xAI, is a new feature that was automatically installed in some Teslas in the U.S. this summer and in some Canadian vehicles in October. Nasser says Grok's not safe for work setting, which is known for using profane language, was not turned on.
Oh, fuck those haters. They're just jealous their Priuses don't come with a built-in vibrator mode.
Mark Daly is the chief AI officer at Western University. He says Elon Musk, who heads Tesla and xAI, is a free speech extremist.
He wants Grok to be completely open to have any conversation with anyone.
Tesla did not provide a comment. However, xAI provided what appeared to be an automated reply, simply stating legacy media lies. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps to spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on that app and on YouTube. Lots of places to find us. Clear sky, 1 degree. It's going to be pretty decent today, actually. We don't have rain in our forecast in the south here. Abby, as always, has your forecast in just a moment. If you're thinking about electric vehicles and you're still wondering, how far can I travel in Manitoba, particularly north? Well, coming up.
Can't go where there's no infrastructure, and now it's coming.
We're going to get an update on the new EV charging stations that are being installed across northern Manitoba. We'll find out how it's helping to connect communities. We learned about this project years ago, but they are now entering some of the final phases that will help if you're traveling in our province by EV. So that's coming up. Also, this half hour on the program, after being laid off during her maternity leave, a Winnipeg woman decided to turn her hobby into a growing business. Stay tuned to hear how she did it. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She has updates on other stories. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, a Sapataway Cree Nation family says they want answers in the death of their sister, who they say was refused care and died. Naturel Cook says her sister Shandy, who had been living with leukemia, went to the Swan River Health Centre earlier this month on October 10th. Naturel says Shandy was struggling to breathe, and she now questions why she was turned away from the hospital only to die later that night. Well, Winnipeg Gold Eyes players hope all this hype around the Toronto Blue Jays carries over into their season next year. Last night, the Gold Eyes hosted a Blue Jays watch party. We're going to take you there coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And now, as I mentioned, into the weather with some more details. Here's Abby.
Much of the south is going to be enjoying sunshine through the day, Marcy. We're going to see cooler temperatures and cloudier conditions up north with some light rain and even flurries developing tonight. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 1 It's clear outside, still spotting some fog patches on the edge of the city. That should clear as you get into the morning, giving way to sunshine and light winds through the day. The high reaches around 8 degrees today. Across the south, we're seeing minus 6 degrees in Brandon, minus 4 in Dauphin, and 3 degrees in Gimli at this time. Up north, we're seeing 2 degrees from the power Flin Flon, Thompson, and Churchill. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at 1 and it's clear outside.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey's back.
Got a call from Daniel about 25 minutes or so ago, so may still be an issue. On the turnoff from southbound 59 onto the eastbound South Perimeter, right on that turnoff there, there was a two-car collision that is blocking the right lane, so it's causing some backups. You can get around it, but it's slow going if you're trying to get from that southbound 59 onto the eastbound South Perimeter. So heads up there, might be slow going. But if you do see anything else going on out there, feel free to give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
So we just want to give a shout out, and we don't do this often enough, but we talk about YouTube and streaming on YouTube,
Yes.
where we hope you're watching. You're about to see something really yummy. But I want to say good morning to Bashir Kabir, who wrote to us this morning. Very nice to see the CBC Radio live. So he's looking at you, Corey, your new haircut probably. And then someone called Boom Room 5 said, so cool to put faces to the voices I've been hearing for decades. So a long-time listener has found us visually.
Oh, that's so nice. And yes, thank you. And I did get a haircut just for you.
It's always, I don't know about you, Corey, but I get this all the time when people sometimes meet you face to face. It takes a second.
Yeah.
You know, because maybe you've only been listening to the voice, especially if
you picture something in your mind, and it's different usually.
So on YouTube, if you want to blow your mind, so to speak. You can also, by the way, share comments there and give any feedback to the show on our listener line. It's 788-3205. 7:14 a.m. is the time right now, and maybe you've seen this on social media, the viral trend of pouring melted chocolate over fresh strawberries. After getting laid off during her maternity leave earlier this year, Mary-Del Cloma-Toussaint decided to see if the trend could work here. And it seems to be working. It seems to be taken off. She says she's been selling out at pop-ups that she now runs all across the city. And Mary Del's the owner of Melted. She's here in studio, and she's here with some of her products, too. Good morning.
Good morning.
So before we look at these beautiful products, and I want to eat everything in the studio right now, tell me a little bit about what that was like when you got laid off, because that's really stressful to start with, right?
Of course. So obviously during mat leave, you're caring for your baby, and I expected to go back, but unfortunately the company went under. And that was a surprise to me. So I was kind of left in the limbo of, do I go back to corporate? Should I open up the business? And I decided to go the route of opening up a chocolate-covered strawberry business. So
have you ever had a business before like that? Were you a business-minded person?
I went to business school, but I always thought I wanted to go into the corporate world. But the food industry is completely new to me, but here we are today.
Where'd you get the idea from? I mentioned this there was a viral trend for a while where people were doing things. Is that where it came from?
Yeah, of course. So it started off in London Borough Market. That's kind of where the strawberry cups came from. So I brought it into Winnipeg, but did a little own twist to it. We introduced flavors that no one had ever seen before. So we have our Bueno cup right here. No one has seen that before, or no one has ever done it. We have ube berry, we have matcha. So really reintroducing the classic dessert to something else.
Now, had you been doing this before, in COVID times, I understand?
Yes. So in 2020, we were hand dipping our strawberries, which was very time consuming. It was like a little pandemic project of mine just to keep my mind out of the lockdown. That was just a small business of mine. Took a pause on that. And then obviously when I got laid off in 2025, I reintroduced this business, rebranded, and did something completely different. And then we kind of took off on social media.
So let's look at these things in some more detail. Your product, you held some of them up. So basically it's a cup. I'm going to hold one up to my camera here so people can see. I have two of them here. So basically they're cups, they're plastic. What's inside? For example, the ones I'm holding here.
Yeah, of course. So they're made with whole strawberries. They are made to order. So if someone orders something, they are made right in front of them. This one is particularly milk chocolate and whole strawberries. And then the other one is milk chocolate with scorp pieces.
And what did you say the unique one was? If you could hold yours
this
up
one
there,
is a Bueno berry. So if you ever had a Kinder Bueno bar, it is is a deconstruction version. So we have white chocolate, milk chocolate, wafer, and then hazelnut sauce.
Okay, and the other one looks like a s'more?
This is a s'more berry.
Yeah.
This is one of our best sellers as well. So these are the classic flavors that I brought out.
Okay, I'm going to pop this open.
Yeah. The chocolate may be a little hardened because I made it a while ago, but our chocolate does remain soft for a bit.
Okay.
And then in the bottom, you can see there is a puddle of chocolate there.
Got it. So you want to have a spoon or a fork. Or I'm not
Yes.
going to dig into this and make a big mess all over the studio. Don't worry. But it smells divine, as you can imagine. You really can't go wrong with strawberries and chocolate.
Yeah, classic dessert. I could probably eat it all day.
I got to say, though, getting into the food business, it's a big deal. Where did you find mentorship? I'm just curious, as an entrepreneur in Winnipeg, to understand, the rules around food and all the licensing and stuff.
Of course. So honestly, I did a lot of Googling myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to open up a business. I searched up how to open up a business, and I kind of went through the steps. I reached out to health inspectors. There was one person in particular that helped me open up my business. I was asking them, what permits do I need? What license do I need? And they kind of helped me through the steps. And then everything I'm learning as I go. I'm 5 months in, and I still feel like there's a lot to learn in this business. And I'm super grateful for everything and all the networking I've done with other people as well.
What was the hardest thing that maybe you didn't expect so far?
Right now, I'm dealing with supplier issues with strawberries, with also inflation costs, and strawberries have doubled in price. So that's one of the big issues that I'm dealing with right now.
So input costs, and that's out of your control,
yes.
right?
Even chocolate, I saw a 20% increase in chocolate, but it is the two main ingredients to our business.
Yeah. What's been better about it than you thought? Because I understand that people might have seen this. Like, there's lineups at your pop-ups around town.
Yes, that is correct.
How awesome is that for you? What does that feel like when you're there thinking, I did this?
Yeah, that is. I'm super grateful for that. I'm very humbled as well because I started this business as a side project. To see this growth within 5 months has been unbelievable, not to me, but only my family as well. So it's usually me and my husband working, sometimes my brother and sister. So it's really a family-run business, and seeing people lining up for our strawberry cups has been truly amazing.
In terms of where you started and where you're at now, I understand it was a little bit slow to start.
Yes.
So how many orders did you have right at the start, and how did you ramp up business?
I believe in the start, we were only serving about 20 cups, maybe 50 cups a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Last weekend, we sold out with over 600 cups sold.
Whoa.
Yes.
So how did you do that? How did you apply business-wise? Where did you look to sort of say, because you could have given up, but you didn't. So what did you do to improve things?
I think social media really took off for us. For any small business, social media is a free tool that you could use. I feel like once you put yourself out there, put your face to your business, showing people behind the scenes, that's what really resonates with audiences. And that's kind of what I've done. A lot of food influencers picked up our product as well. That kind of helped our product promotion as well. So I feel like social media has been a really big part of our business.
When you think about what you might have to do, because those input costs of chocolate,
yes,
the kind of quality chocolate you're using here, and then strawberries, are going up. We've done a whole bunch of stories on this because of the tariffs, trade, also just inflation. And are you already thinking about how you might have to pivot?
So again, we're 5 months in. I'm trying to see if it is a seasonal business, if we're only operating in summer. But right now, I'm going with the flow. I don't know what's happening next month or then a couple months before. So really just going with the flow. And I'm booked until end of November. So
thank you so much for coming in and sharing your business story of success with us. And good luck the rest of the way. It's really nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
That is Mary Del Clomatozon. She's the owner of Melted. So in case you're trying to look at her business, understand her business, or maybe you want to ask her some questions, because what a journey she's had getting this up and running. Her next pop-up is coming up. It's on November 8th and 9th, and you can check it out in Garden City Mall.
I'm Suresh Das. I've spent my career writing about the local favorites that make Canada's food scene truly unique. I bit into a chili. Woo! From vibrant street food to comforting traditional dishes.
The most important ingredients in jollof rice, love.
To innovative, personal twists. Butter chicken lasagna.
Butter chicken lasagna. That's what made it all happen.
I believe every bite tells a story. Now, I want to share those stories with you.
New series Locals Welcome with Suresh Das. Watch free on CBC Gem.
7:21 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on that app and on YouTube. Well, a bit of music before sports, and we talk about the Jets and the Jays, both good news stories, by the way. The music, though, comes also from, well, a group that's always making good news, local, Brothers Landreth. They, you might recall, got some attention from Grammy Award winner Bonnie Raitt back in the day, who earned one of her many Grammys making a cover of the Brothers Landreth tune Made Up Mind. Now, though, she's back involved with the local group. She's lending her voice to a new single. So you'll pick it out in this. This is the Brothers Landreth featuring Bonnie Raitt and Knuckles.
I can see that you're hurting. It's written in your eyes, like pages in a book. It's clear your faith is shook. I can read between the lines. Sadness isn't something we're meant to face alone. You think that it protects you, it's loneliness that gets you every single time. Don't bite your tongue, say what you mean. Just keep on singing till it sets you free. And don't pull your punches, let them rain down on me. Just keep on swinging till your knuckles bleed. Make it look so easy to take it so hard. I hope you know you can land every blow. I'm throwing this card, and I know we've had practice saying goodbye. Though it hurts so much, I don't want to rush through it this time. So don't bite.
Local Brothers Landreth, they're getting attention again from Grammy Award winner Bonnie Raitt. You can hear her voice there on this track. Their new album, by the way, this one's called Knuckles. You can find the whole new album, Dog Ear, though. It comes out in November. So certainly we'll play more tracks from it once that's fully out. It's 7:25 a.m. It's clear and 1 in Winnipeg. It's clear and -6 in Brandon, a little chilly. Thompson is cloudy and 2 degrees. We're going to have sun in Winnipeg, a high of 8. Sun in Brandon, a high of 10. That'll be a nice day. And in Thompson, cloudy and a high of 5 degrees. So across Manitoba, pretty calm and seasonal. Well, let's get ready to talk baseball. I think a lot of people are happy this game was quicker last night than the marathon the night before. But the World Series is now a best of 3. Scott Reguera, good morning.
Good morning.
Anyone who thought the Jays weren't legit and couldn't stand in with the Dodgers is not saying a word now.
No, radio silence. The Jays' latest win last night came with stellar contributions, Marcy, both at the plate and on the mound. Their key hit last night came early, mercifully. A 2-run homer by Vladdy Guerrero Jr. in the 3rd inning. Up until then, Shohei Ohtani was pitching in a way that made you feel like he was maybe going to make it another rough night for the Jays. But Vladdy, who's at times carried his team on his back during these playoffs, did it again. Here's manager John Schneider.
I get that it's easy to write Ohtani versus Guerrero. To us, it's Toronto versus Los Angeles. But that swing was huge. And after last night and kind of all the recognition that went into Shohei individually, and he's on the mound today, it's a huge swing from Vlad. It's a huge swing to get us going. The swing from Vlad was game changer.
Guerrero Jr.'s contributions, Marcy, went beyond that one home run swing. After losing in that 18-inning marathon the night prior, Vladdy saw his teammates with their heads down and heading into the locker room, and so he chose to head into the locker room last of all and immediately told them, this is not over. You have to win 4 games to claim a World Series, so lift your heads up. Figuratively and literally then, Vladdy has lifted Toronto to within 2 games of a championship themselves.
I don't know how athletes do it. Like when he got to the plate, I thought to myself, he hasn't really, he hasn't homered in this series yet. He hasn't
thinking the same thing. Yeah.
And I thought this would be a moment, right? If he could just get the 2 runs, and he does it. Like I have no idea how athletes do that. Right?
I just got chills thinking of that because I imagine how many people listening right now had exactly the same thought process going on. And you're looking at Vladdy going, you know who needs to step up right now? Vladdy. Whap. It goes out of the park. Yeah.
You talked about contributions, though, on the mound for Toronto.
Yeah.
What did you make of Shane Bieber then last night?
I mean, exceptional, especially given the circumstances, Marcy. Late into the night before, remember, Bieber was in the bullpen getting ready to come in relief in the 19th inning, a 19th that never happened, as it turned out. Major league aces of anyone are creatures of habit, creatures of routine. So that could have messed with Bieber's head right there. So could going up against Shohei, both as a pitcher and a batter the night before, of course. So Ohtani was on base 9 times, and Bieber kept the Japanese great at bay. He struck him out twice in the process. And if you look at the box score this morning, it's Bieber's name, not Ohtani's, with the W beside it.
Hey, I didn't sleep very well. I was definitely amped up, all right? Just, you have to get yourself ready to pitch in the 19th inning of a World Series game, marathon, and potentially, I was thinking about my first big league save, and in the World Series, that would have been very cool, but very happy with how things worked out.
And so are Jays fans who know whatever happens tonight at Dodger Stadium, Marcy, the World Series trophy will be doled out in Toronto. It's just a question now, who will get that trophy? First pitch tonight, just after 7 o'clock Central Time.
We have a bit of time left to talk about other things in sports beyond baseball.
Yeah, Kyle Connor with the winner last night in overtime. The Jets got by Minnesota, and we are 100 days out to the Winter Olympics. There'll be 8 new sports, including ski mountaineering. Edmonton's Peter Knight hopes to represent Canada.
I think you have to be pretty strong mentally to practice ski mountaineering. There's no coasting in it. Going up the hill is very tough. Your legs are screaming for you to stop. Your lungs are gasping for more air. Your heart is pounding. I think you should cheer on Team Canada at the Olympics for ski mountaineering because we are an underdog compared to Western Europe. What's more Canadian than being out in the outdoors in the snow in the winter? This sport has a lot of opportunity for more Canadians to join.
This event starts with athletes walking up steps on the side of a mountain with their skis on their backpacks. Then they put skins, synthetic skins, on the bottom of their skis to go to the top of the mountain, and then they race down against each other. It's incredible, and just one thing to look forward to 100 days from now at the Olympics.
All right, thanks, Scott.
You bet.
Still ahead, if you're having trouble getting a good night's sleep, not just because of baseball, but anytime, we're going to take you to Canada's largest sleep disorder clinic. It is right here in Winnipeg, and that is after your news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 1 degree. You'll need a sweater. But it's going to be beautiful today. The sun is back today, a high of 8. We're expecting showers to move in tomorrow. A Sapataouiat Cree Nation family is demanding answers after they say their sister was refused care and died. Shandy Cook went to the Swan River Health Centre October 10th. The 25-year-old mother had been battling leukemia and was struggling to breathe. She also had been vomiting blood. Her sister, Naturel Cook, says she asked for help but was turned away, so she went home. Hours later, she died.
During the night, she kept complaining about her breathing and she kept puking up blood. And then my dad said she finally went to bed, so then he thought that she was okay. And then in the morning, he tried to wake her up, no response. So he tried to check for her pulse, no pulse.
Naturel says her family is considering legal action and wants an apology for her sister's death. The regional health authorities say they are investigating. Manitoba's Advocate for Children and Youth says alcohol was involved in the majority of serious injury cases it investigated last year. The Advocate's annual report was tabled in the legislature yesterday ahead of today's official release. The Advocate says it reviewed 95 serious injury reports in the fiscal year that ended in March. Of those, 58% were drug or alcohol related, and just over half were the result of a sexual assault. The Advocate's scope covers Manitobans aged 20 and under who are receiving a reviewable service, most commonly because they're in the care of Child and Family Services. CO Silica is taking another stab at getting a license to mine for sand in Manitoba. The Alberta company has filed a new proposal. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, it hopes this one will be more acceptable to environment officials and to politicians.
CO Silica says it'll drill fewer wells over a smaller area and extract less sand than its original mining proposal. The province rejected that last year over concerns about the effects on drinking water and geological stability. CO Silica President Carla Devlin says the new proposal addresses the environmental concerns. Mining opponent Tangi Bell says she's not buying it.
They plan to mine in the same location, which is Manitobans' drinking water.
Bell urged the province to reject the new proposal. Premier Wapkanu is non-committal.
It'll go through the process.
This new CO Silica proposal comes after Manitoba's ethics commissioner ruled former Premier Heather Stephenson and two PC cabinet ministers tried to approve the original plan after they lost the 2023 election to Canu's NDP. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is at the APEC summit in South Korea today. U.S. President Donald Trump is also there, but it doesn't appear the two leaders will sit down for a meeting with one another. In his post on Truth Social last night, Trump said, "For those asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada." Tensions between Canada and the U.S. are high after Trump said he was putting trade talks on hold because of an anti-tariff commercial produced by the Ontario government, which aired in the U.S. You can hear the latest on this story and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, the Blue Jays got it done last night in Los Angeles.
In the air to left field, but Straw is there, and the Blue Jays win it.
Blue Jays winning Game 4 of the World Series, 6-2 the final. The series now tied at 2 wins apiece. Among the highlights last night, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting a 2-run homer off Shohei Ohtani in the third inning. In a post-game interview on Sportsnet, Guerrero Jr. says, on the field, you just gotta compete.
I always trying to compete for my city, compete for the team, and when you're competing, something good happens.
So, Game 5 tonight, again in Los Angeles. The Jays start rookie Trey Yesavage. For the Dodgers, it is Blake Snell. Winnipeg Goldeyes players hope all that hype around the Toronto Blue Jays carries over into their season next year. Landon Barassa is a Canadian pitcher for the team and has been a lifelong Jays fan. He hopes the Jays' success this season increases involvement in baseball.
Involvement in baseball doesn't mean just playing, right? There's a million ways to be involved when it comes to being a fan or just supporting other people who play and just growing the game as a whole across the country. I mean, it's just been fun to see, like I said, and knowing that baseball's never been our first sport, but it's something that people here that play baseball are always going to be passionate about.
Barassa hopes people who are getting into the Jays now will also buy into the Goldeyes next summer. Also notching a win last night.
Kyle Connor, shot scores! Connor in overtime, and the Jets take it 4-3.
Kyle Connor in overtime on TSN as the Jets beat the Wild in Minnesota. Connor says it's all about getting to the net.
Finding loose pucks and shooting for sticks and, just keep it simple to do. So I thought we did a good job.
Connor Hellebuck stopping 33 shots. The Jets now return home and host Chicago tomorrow night. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, Heather Wells with our news this morning. Abby's with our forecast, paying special attention to Friday, too. That's 2 days out. That's when kids are going to be trick-or-treating for Halloween, and it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, looking pretty good, but let's deal with today. It's already setting the pace for that. Cool midweek across board. Sunshine returns today to much of the south, while the north is going to be staying mostly cloudy with cool temperatures coming your way. Winnipeg right now, 1, it's clear outside. Sunshine breaks through in a bit, and we'll see light winds and highs near 8 degrees. Tonight, some cloudy conditions, and we're deep to about 2 degrees. Down in the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at similar conditions. Sunshine also on its way, clear skies. You will see some clouds by the evening periods. You warm up to about 8 degrees later. Then we head west. Brandon, it's cold at -6 at this time. We're going to see more like a sunshine through the day and a high near 10 degrees. There's a bit of rain in the forecast for Brandon tonight. That should come later in the evening. In Dauphin, we're looking at -4. The Parkland region is also clear. We'll see highs near 9 degrees before clouds build later in the afternoon, and then some rain tonight. In the Parkland, in the Interlake region, 3 degrees in Gimli at this time. We're expecting sunshine for most of the day. You're warm to about 8 degrees. And then we turn to the powerful influence surrounding communities. We're seeing partly cloudy skies there, 3 degrees there. You warm up to about 5. Rain developing tonight. Thompson at 2. Highs around 5. It's going to stay overcast into tomorrow. And then up in Churchill, we're looking at cloudy conditions and 2 degrees. Slim chance of showers and highs near 5 degrees with a few flurries at tonight. So it's kind of cool today, but then looking at that future forecast, we kind of have some sunshine.
Yeah, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime also you get into Friday with cloudy and 5s and stuff across the province, 3 in Thompson, as he said. But, I mean, you're just happy there's no rain or snow for Halloween. So your kid's dressing up, Corey?
Yeah. My little guy, he's kind of torn between 3 costumes.
Okay.
He doesn't know, he's 3, and he doesn't know whether he wants to be a polar bear, a farmer, or a pickle. So we have all 3 of those costumes. So I don't know.
Why do I like that so much?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and so I was
How
advocating.
will he possibly choose?
Well, I told him maybe you could be a polar bear that farms pickles, so he could have that could be a thing.
Does he like that?
Well, I think his 3-year-old mind has trouble wrapping his head around the 3-in-1
Yeah, you
costume
can't do
approach.
that,
It kind of blew his mind a little bit. But we might do costume changes, like he might be a pickle at daycare, and then
cute.
trick or treat as a polar bear, and then
What about your little one, your baby?
we're just gonna throw a butterfly costume on her because she's cute. I don't know.
The baby.
We got one lying
when we
around.
can
She's
decide.
the second now. It's like, oh shoot, we got to do something for her. Okay, yeah, butterflies. Yeah.
Let's. You're here not to talk costumes, but to talk traffic. But do you have anything to add?
Still be an issue. Haven't heard any updates on it, but probably just under an hour ago, I heard about a collision right on the turnoff from southbound 59 onto the eastbound south perimeter. It was blocking the right lane. You could still get around it. But Daniel, who called the commuter line, said that it was pretty backed up as people tried to get around that. May still be an issue if you're running if it's slow going there. Other than that, though, it's been a fairly quiet commute. But if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Next on the show, let's talk about sleep. If you've ever had trouble with sleep, then you know that it can be devastating. It can really impact every aspect of your life. And it's frustrating, too. If you have been struggling with it for a long time, you obviously probably know that you're not alone. But did you know that the Misericordia Hospital here in Winnipeg has the largest sleep disorder center in all of Canada? They treat thousands of Canadians every year. They say that number, though, is constantly rising. CBC's Jim Agapito went there to see what goes on.
While the city sleeps, something else is wide awake. Tucked away on the upper floors of the Misericordia Hospital is the Sleep Disorder Center, where it helps thousands of Canadians who have trouble sleeping get a good night's rest. It's the largest center of its kind here in Canada, so let's check it out.
I'm Tanya Egan, and I am the interim manager of the Sleep Disorder Center. In a year, we see about 10,000 patients. A typical night for a patient, it involves them coming here in the evening, usually around 8:30 p.m. We discuss what happens during the night for them, bedtime routines, and then we take them to our setup room. We spend about an hour getting them all wired up. We study 10 people per night, so there are several setup areas, but this is the main one. This is what's called a breakout box or a head box with several electrodes. The electrodes are gold-plated cups. Gold is the best conductor for electricity. Each gets placed on specific areas of the head. We monitor specific areas of the brain so that we know when a patient is awake or asleep and the different stages of sleep that they're in.
And just looking at it, it's basically a box with a whole bunch of wires and electrodes that, I guess, is it measuring the electricity going through their heads?
So what this does is it records physiological signals. We can monitor brain activity, oxygen levels, respiratory effort.
I'm Dr. Dan Altman. I'm one of the sleep physicians working at the Sleep Disorder Center at the Misericordia Health Center.
What are the most common then sleep disorders that you are seeing here at this clinic?
We have a pretty wide spectrum here. Sleep disordered breathing, different types, obstructive sleep apnea, central sleep apnea, sleep-related hypoventilation would certainly be the bread and butter and the majority of what we see.
My name is Lita Lopez-Shortil. For a really long time, I've had issues with sleep, felt very, very, very tired throughout the day. My mood, my energy, my ability to concentrate. Sometimes I'd come home from work and just wake up on my couch realizing I had passed out.
So this is the control room. This is where the techs sit at night, monitoring the patient's sleeping, as well as during the day, we analyze the night studies.
By analyzing all of that data, you come here in the evening, you get hooked up to all these wires and bands, you look like Iron Man. And from all of that data, we're able to see, what happens when you sleep overnight, what is contributing to the fragmentation of your sleep or the breaking up of your sleep, what's causing you to be awake or not awake. And depending on whether there's associated changes in your breathing or in your movements, we might be able to tell you, we think that it's this.
When I first got diagnosed, I think it was a big sense of relief for me to understand what was wrong with me, first of all. For a long time, I had struggled with sleep, and not knowing what the reason for that was put a lot of stress on me. It felt like it was my own individual fault or responsibility to try and fix it. And with nothing working, having this diagnosis helped me feel a lot less pressure on myself and fear of having to deal with this forever.
The next few signals here, this is what we call the EEG. And all this together tells us when a patient is asleep or awake.
After I got diagnosed, I got the CPAP machine and I had to get comfortable sleeping with that at night. I was very excited for my first night actually to wear it. And now I feel like I've kind of set up a routine for myself. I have like a little eye mask. I put my machine mask on. I put it on a little bit before I go to bed, and I just kind of lull myself into sleep with that.
So there is a generation of people now that we have things like iPads, we have our smartphones, sometimes keeping up people doom scrolling late at night. How does that impact a person's sleep?
Yeah, great. There's two things that are regulating sleep for the vast majority of people. How long have you been awake for, and then your circadian rhythm, which really gets set by cycles of light and dark. If you're on your phone or you're on your TV late at night, sending a really bright light to your eyes, it thinks that it's daytime outside. It's going to say, okay, let's get up, let's go. And so that sort of naturally leads to worsened sleep. And so having a dark environment, particularly in the hour before sleep, is really helpful to getting a good night's sleep.
It's been so life-changing for me. I feel like if you've asked anyone who knows me what the biggest thing for this year has been for me, they would say my CPAP machine.
Every night when the lights go out, the sleep center is hard at work trying to restore what everyone needs, a good night's sleep. Because sleep here isn't a luxury, it's medicine. Jim Agapito, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, speaking of sleep, everything doesn't lead back to the Jays, but I can't help but notice that last night, Shohei Ohtani, who says he normally gets 12 hours of sleep after that marathon game, couldn't get in all his Z's, but that's part of his prep as an athlete. As you heard, here at the Sleep Disorder Center in Winnipeg, they treat more than 10,000 people every year. Well, Donna called the commuter line. I just want to update this here. She says construction barricades are blocking the left lane on southbound Waverly just before Taylor. So that is causing some backups in the area. You want to keep right. And if you need to call the commuter line this morning here, 788-3093. So that's the number. It is Wednesday, October 29th. We're getting through the end of the month here. Winnipeg today, sunny and a high of 8 degrees. And next on the show, Corey was just talking about Friday and Halloween and his little guy deciding to be a pickle, a farmer, or dress up like a polar bear. Well, our next artist is actually a farmer, so maybe you can be more than one thing. He's a farmer usually. He's also a musician, as I mentioned. His name's Zachary. He hails from the Pembina Valley. His debut album is called Fragments, and it features this next song on CBC. This is Zachary and Hate Loving You This Way.
I wish you would stab my back, give me a reason to hate you. I don't know what to feel right now. Obvious you know my text, keep my truck, make me upset. Maybe this wouldn't hurt somehow. You make leaving so damn hard, and I look back to you in your car, hoping you heard the same. You make the distance seem so close, and I hope you move here, but you won't. A million reasons I should stay. I hate loving you this way. I sing your songs, you make me laugh. It all makes sense till we do the math. We're perfect, but we're worlds apart. Arizona makes me sad. I loved your place, mom and your dad. We were all right from the start. Ain't no having a heart to heart. You make leaving so damn hard, and I look back to you in your car, hoping you heard the same. You make the distance seem so close, and I hope you move here, but you won't. A million reasons I should stay. I hate loving you this way. You gotta help me out, say that we're over now. If every time we turn to screaming, then maybe I could stand the feeling. You gotta help me out, say that we're over now. If every time we turn to screaming, then maybe I could stand the feeling. But you make leaving so damn hard, and I look back to you in your car, hoping you heard the same. You make the distance seem so close, and I hope you move here, but you won't. A million reasons I should stay. I hate loving you this way.
Hey, loving you this way, Manitoba farmer from Morden, Manitoba, and musician Zachary with his latest tune.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
The Great Canadian Baking Show is back.
Hello, beautiful bakers, and welcome to the tent.
10 contestants.
On your marks. Get set, bake.
All hoping for the sweet smell of success.
I am at the stage of panic. Just gotta say a little prayer.
I'm in heaven.
Wow. I haven't even tasted it, and I'm happy.
I forgot to put in the eggs. Is anyone else uncontrollably shaking right now?
It's a new season of The Great Canadian Baking Show. Watch free on CBC Gem.
It is 11 minutes now to 8 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It is clear and 1 in Winnipeg, -6, so pretty chilly over in Brandon, and it's mainly clear. If you need us in traffic, 788-3093 is where we ask you to call and pass along tips. Coming up after 8, we'll continue the conversation around universal screening for learning disabilities. We've been hearing from people who are in support of that idea in schools in Manitoba. Stay tuned to hear why the Manitoba's Teacher Society feels differently and says there might be a better way to do things to help students. So that's coming up on that ongoing series of conversations after 8 o'clock on the show here. A lot of you have been writing to us, so I'll also try to get to some of your stories that you've been sharing about learning disabilities in your lives. Right now, though, it takes 7.5 hours to drive from Winnipeg to Thompson. But if you owned an electric vehicle, that trip wasn't really even possible. So a Manitoba EV organization has taken matters into its own hands. They've built its own charging network in the north. Kent Heinrich is the project manager and a partner for the Free Ride EV educational program, a project aimed to increase awareness and understanding among Indigenous communities about electric vehicles. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
So tell me a little bit about this and what the aim of your project is and how it's actually going to help people get up north.
Okay, great, thank you. And I just first want to correct you. It's not my initiative. It's an initiative of 3 First Nation communities between Winnipeg and Thompson that I approached and suggested there's a possibility we could put in chargers for the communities, and they generously offered that and supported the project. So
let me stop you there, Kent, because let's give credit where credit's due. What are the three communities? Tell me a little bit about why they said, "Can you help us with this?" You know.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So the first community I approached was Mississipawastic.
Mississipawastic. Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just always have a challenge with the name, but
okay.
The lovely Chief Heidi Cook up in Grand Rapids, I spoke to her and just explained that the possibility was there. They've been approached a few times over the years of, potentially, and the costs around it were just very inhibitive. So, we were able to come to an agreement that I would be able to put chargers in at no cost to the community, and she said yes, and it was a benefit for the people of the north, not directly her community, because getting to the north from Winnipeg by EV was not possible. I then spoke to, sorry?
No, continue, please, yeah.
And then I spoke to Councillor Blair at Pinawawagan, or Pinamutang, Fairford, and he agreed as well, and met with Chief Curvis, and again the same process there,
which is fabulous, because I just want to place people for a second here. That's at the north end of Lake Manitoba. So when you go up that way, I mean, you don't really have that many places to stop to charge. You have nowhere. So Pinamutang was your second one, and what was the third community that you're working with?
The third one ideally would have been a place called Ponton Junction, but unfortunately it's not available. It's under construction now. So the next spot up the road was at it's called where is it? Oh, Pinamut Place, which is owned by Cross Lake Band of First Nation. And at that location, they have a really wonderful restaurant and convenience store on the junction. It's a big, beautiful log building, and they agreed to put in chargers there, which are pictured here. Now, this location is about an hour south of Thompson.
Okay.
So at that spot, we couldn't put in level 3 chargers, only the level 2.
Okay.
But it can serve as a safety spot or a top-up point if you're going north or south to make sure you have enough energy in your car to make the trip.
So tell me a little bit about this. Is all of what we're talking about here? These 3 communities, you've connected with them, more chargers, making travel more, free and freely possible, I should say.
Yes.
Not free, but possible with an EV. It's part of something called the Northern Gateway Project. What stage are you at? Like, are you planning more for this to help people with that connectivity?
Right. Well, these were the first 3 of the process. We've got Grand Rapids is up and running with a level 3 DC fast charger and a pair of 19.2 kilowatt level 2 chargers. The Woboden Junction there, Pinamut Place, has 2 level 2s. Now we're just in the process of getting Fairford's started. It's a unique one because it's going to have solar, it's going to have a 200 kilowatt hour battery, and it's also going to have the DC fast charger and level 2 charger.
Okay.
The reason
and when will you be finished the whole network? Like, how many more are you adding?
Okay.
Just simply. That's okay. I just don't want to run out of time.
You betcha. November 20th, we're going to have Pinamut Place, Fairford done. And also, to our great discovery, Warren has a level 3 charger and 2 level 2s at their community complex. So that's the southern end of the leg, which was beautiful.
So I don't want us to get lost in too many of the details, because I have neglected to ask you the big question, which is, when you're talking to these communities, Yep. What do you hear about the need for this, and how this will change people's lives and help?
They're accepting and realizing the need now. I've already been in contact with like Cross Lake is starting to look at getting electric vehicles, and where it helps is if you can picture medical services in Grand Rapids driving into Winnipeg weekly or daily at $100 a trip. If they can turn around and make that trip at no cost, fuel cost, it's the economics around it are great. Electric vehicles work fabulous. There's no problem using electric vehicles in Manitoba. You have to be wary of certain differences, but they're good to go. And this is opening up the north for all First Nation communities.
How will the stations be maintained, and how did you raise money to get this done since you took this on?
Right, you bet. Well, the capital costs were covered by various grants. The first one came through Indigenous Clean Energy through their Charge Up program that covered costs of the chargers, and then Manitoba Green Fund kicked in to help with some of the electrical upgrades we needed to do, as well as the solar and infrastructure stuff at Fairford. And the last one is Indigenous Service Canada. So a combination of all those funds came together. We've reserved money in a maintenance fund, so we'll be able to maintain and service the chargers moving forward. And, fingers crossed that they work without challenge.
Well, there's a huge need for this. I was just looking back at some of our reporting about all those gaps. Thank you so much for telling us about it this morning. Really interesting, Kent.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be able to spread the word.
Live on CBC via Zoom, that's Ken Heinrich. He's the project manager and one of the partners in the Free Ride EV educational program. So part of their Northern Gateway network, as I was calling it, Northern Gateway Project, is the installation of new EV charging stations, including in Mississippiwestic Cree Nation and Pimicikamak and Penemutang as well. That one is on the way. The entire project is expected to be completed by November 20th, we understand, in our previous reports as of 2023, due to lack of charging stations along Highway 6 up to Thompson. What would normally be a 760-kilometer drive, which should take about 8 hours, at that point was taking 30 hours because of the lack of stations and chargers. So this will change people's lives in Manitoba. If you want to weigh in, 788-3205. Let's go to Heather now with the headlines.
Well, after being rejected in 2024, CO Silica has applied once again for a license to extract sand from southeast Manitoba. The new proposal calls for fewer mines over a smaller area. But one mining opponent says the new proposal is no different than the original. We'll hear all about it coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather. Thanks. 1 degree clear in Winnipeg. Donna on the commuter line saying barricades, construction ones, blocking the left lane on southbound Waverley just before Taylor. It is causing some backups to this hour. 788-3093 if you have any updates. And after 8 o'clock, Manitoba's Teachers Society will weigh in on the idea of universal screening for learning disabilities in the schools.
On cue. To prepare for his latest role, the Irish actor Colin Farrell lived in a casino where gamblers would wager millions at one table. He'll tell you about what he observed there, his philosophy on acting, and about his dad, an Irish pro soccer player.
My father and I could kind of bond. It was kind of a common language that we had.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Catherine Cullen. Amazon is growing its operations in this country. About 50,000 Canadians now work for the company, but they're also automating operations, and the plan is for 3/4 of workers to actually be robots. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Hurricane Melissa is still pushing north. Just hours ago, it made landfall on eastern Cuba as a Category 3 storm. It is now a Category 2 storm, but its winds are still intense, more than 165 kilometers an hour. The storm has lost strength since hitting Jamaica yesterday. As Katie Nicholson tells us, officials there are still assessing the damage.
The entire Jamaica has felt the brunt of Melissa.
Jamaica's Minister for Local Government, Desmond McKenzie, detailed the damage after Hurricane Melissa slammed into the island.
We have reports coming out of Black River our number of families being trapped in their homes. And it was difficult for the rescue team to get there.
The fate of those families not immediately clear, but much of the damage was. Electric poles ripped from the ground, landslides and floodwaters closed roads. The country's breadbasket, St. Elizabeth Parish, where the bulk of its food is produced, underwater. Just a year ago, Hurricane Beryl badly hit the same area, and it was just recovering. Brian Bogart is with the World Food Program, standing by to help.
The first time you're hit by a storm of this nature, it's devastating. The next time that a storm like this impacts the same communities, you can only imagine how difficult it will be for them.
Melissa was a historic Category 5 storm for Jamaica. Canadian Stephanie Brayford and her family were stranded at a resort as it passed through, witnessing its wrath.
Terrifying. Nothing like I've ever experienced, and I have experienced a tornado.
It will likely be days before Jamaica fully knows the extent of Melissa's damage, the most powerful and violent storm in its history. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Bank of Canada delivers its latest interest rate decision later this hour and is expected to announce a second consecutive cut. Canada's economy is showing signs of weakening in the face of U.S. tariffs and is only forecast to grow by a small amount. Randall Bartlett is Deputy Chief Economist at Desjardins.
We're expecting growth in the third quarter, again, broadly in line with the Bank of Canada's forecast from July. So it's going to be pretty muted and not feel great. So the Canadian economy is quite weak.
The Bank of Canada lowered its interest rate to 2.5% last month. It was its first rate cut since March. On the eve of a key meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, China's government says it will absolutely not rule out the use of force to reunify the island. Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are expected to meet tomorrow in South Korea, and Chinese officials have been hinting they want the U.S. to distance itself from Taiwan as part of any potential trade deal. Our correspondent Chris Brown reports.
Donald Trump landed in South Korea sounding upbeat.
The President Xi of China is coming tomorrow here, and we're going to be, I hope, making a deal. I think we're going to have a deal.
But the meeting has made many Taiwanese nervous, concerned Trump might trade away the island's security as part of that deal. Taiwan-U.S. relations are very stable, said Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin Chai-lung, trying to quell some of the anxiety. By law, the U.S. is bound to give Taiwan weapons to help it defend itself, but Trump has been vague if the United States would actually come to Taiwan's aid if China attacks.
As with a lot of questions about President Trump's outlook, it's somewhat ambiguous.
British military analyst Philip Shetler-Jones says while Trump has sent mixed signals, China has been pouring money into its military, especially naval and amphibious forces.
There's only really one way of understanding the purpose of that equipment, which is to do amphibious invasions.
Shetler-Jones says there's no consensus about when China will be sufficiently prepared to use force against Taiwan, but the date is likely still a couple of years away and could be pushed back further, depending on Trump's level of commitment to the island. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Drones have become a problem for Canadian prisons. Officials say smugglers are using them to deliver weapons, drugs, and other contraband to inmates. Now police and correctional staff in Kingston, Ontario have formed a team to fight back. Dan Takama has the story.
A basketball stuffed with tobacco and cell phones, bundles of knives and drugs camouflaged with fake grass. Just some of the contraband drone pilots have tried to smuggle behind bars in Kingston.
Rival gangs are trying to control who can fly into prisons.
Sergeant Jonas Bonham is head of the local police intelligence unit, which has teamed up with correction staff to tackle drone smuggling. The task force is the first of its kind in Canada.
Kingston is a prison town, so it just made sense for us to join forces and start doing it together.
Correctional Service Canada says there were more than 1,000 reports of drone activity at prisons across the country last year. It's big business, as even items like pot or tobacco legal on the street are worth 10 to 25 times more inside.
It's mind-boggling. It's also scary.
Lee Chappelle spent decades as a federal inmate. He says drones mean more volume and more options when it comes to contraband.
You're talking anything from guns, phones, any illicit drug possible.
But the partnership in Kingston is having an impact. Investigators say they've managed to cut the number of local drone drops in half. Joel Blacklock is a senior project officer for the Correctional Service.
This task force is making a huge difference.
They're hoping other Canadian law enforcement agencies can learn from their experience and consider assembling a drone task force of their own. Dan Takama, CBC News, Kingston, Ontario.
The federal government is announcing new investments in carbon removal and battery production. Energy and Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson says the funding aims to drive economic growth and climate progress.
Carbon dioxide removal technologies are a critical piece of the net zero puzzle. They allow us to tackle the hardest to abate emissions. This solution opens the door to new markets and long-term competitiveness for our economy.
Ottawa is also putting $5 million towards phosphate battery production in Quebec and BC facilities. The announcement comes ahead of tomorrow's G7 meeting of energy and environment ministers. Leaders are expected to launch an alliance to secure critical minerals for G7 partners. We are just 100 days away from the Winter Olympics in Italy. Milan Cortina 2026 is considered to be the most geographically widespread Olympic Games in history. 4 sites spanning more than 22,000 kilometers. And after years of delays and controversy, Italy now appears to be on track to deliver. Megan Williams has the latest from Milan.
With a slow and often chaotic start, many in Italy feared the Milan Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics would be an Italianata, an Italian-style last-minute scramble. But the country's sprint to February seems to be paying off, a final push that could turn a risky gamble into a global showcase of Italian can-do energy. In Milan's Santa Giulia district, workers are racing to finish a 16,000-seat arena set for completion by mid-December and will host men's hockey before becoming a major concert venue. Nearby Olympic housing in a former rail yard is done, as pavilions at the city's main trade fair complex are being turned into rinks for women's hockey and speed skating. 400 kilometers away in Cortina d'Ampezzo, the new bobsled track, once mired in delays, environmental protests, and worries about costs, has been finished in record time. Many doubted it would be built at all, after skepticism from the IOC. But a surprise for a country where costs for public works often balloon. The bobsled track came in 25% under cost, though still with a hefty price tag of about 185 million Canadian dollars. With 100 days to go for the Winter Olympics, ticket sales are strong, topping 800,000, with hockey leading the pack and plenty of Canadians expected in the stands. Megan Williams, CBC News, Milan.
In the air to left field, but Straw is there and the Blue Jays win it.
That is the play that tied up the World Series. The Toronto Blue Jays won Game 4 last night in Los Angeles, and the Jays outlasted one of the best in the business, Dodgers pitcher Shohei Ohtani. A third-inning home run from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made the difference in the 6-2 win. The series is now tied at 2 games apiece and guarantees a Game 6 back at home in Toronto on Friday night. Game 5 goes tonight in LA.
Okay, Blue Jays, let's play ball.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Bring on the Rangers, bring on the Royals, bring on the Astros, the Cubbies, and the Mets too.
Well, maybe you went locally to the Gold Ice Party to watch that game last night that they hosted here in Winnipeg. Must have been just really fun there with that win last night. It's now a best of 3. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, we've been hearing from people who are in support of changing something in education in this province. They say that universal screening for learning disabilities in schools should be happening between twice a year between kindergarten and grade 3. Yesterday, we also heard from advocates of this who also say that they think it could even happen even younger with more universal screening for kids when they're in preschool. This half hour, we're going to look for add another perspective on this story. We're going to hear why the Manitoba Teachers Society feels differently. And they say teachers are still the ones that are in the best position to understand and screen students for learning disabilities. Stay tuned. We'll have that interview. Also, we are going to get into the mailbag because so many of you have been writing to us, and it's probably because yesterday we looked kind of personally at this too. We heard from a little girl who wasn't screened until a little bit later in her grade school years. Then we heard from an adult who didn't know they lived with dyslexia and ADHD until they were 43 years old. So they were just looking back at what that difference would have made in their life in school. So we're going to read some of your comments in a moment. Right now, though, let's go to Heather Wells. She joins us live in our news center. Good morning. She's not there yet? Okay. She will be there momentarily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin us right into the weather. Abby's going to pop his headphones on and give us an update on what's happening. We have the rain firmly behind us now, Abby. It was still wet yesterday, but today we're going to be cloudy.
Yeah, after that rain, we're going to be enjoying plenty of sunshine today. The north is going to stay cooler, actually. Winnipeg, we're going to see we're seeing clear conditions outside. Some foggy conditions lifting, and then we'll see sunshine with light winds. We warm up to about 8 degrees. In the southern region, we're still tracking -6 around Brandon and -4 in the Dauphin area. Gimli's at 4 degrees right now. Up north, we're seeing 2 degrees across board and cloudy conditions. But right now, Winnipeg, it's clear outside. It's 1, and we will get sunny breaks today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, you have some updates on the commute.
Yes. So got a call from Kathy. So southbound Salter Bridge, she said there's a SUV there that looks like it had a flat. So the owner looks like it's changing a tire right now, right in the curb lane on southbound Salter Bridge. So as you can imagine, that is causing some big backups on the Salter Bridge. Also, just got a call because we did that interview, of course, about the Northern EV network. Got a call from Pat, the Irish Rover, with an update. He also said, just a heads up, there's also an EV charging station in St. Laurent area on Highway 6 in the Twin Beaches turnoff. So if you're an EV person, you're wondering where else we were talking about that network, there's one in St. Laurent as well if you're heading up north. If you see any other updates for me, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
I do want to mention, I had just talked about the rain being behind us. That's in southern Manitoba. There is light rain right now in Thompson. So Abby was talking about those slight differences north and south today. All right, Heather is here with our headlines update now from our busy CBC Manitoba News Center. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Yes, just trying to track the timing of the Bank of Canada releasing its rate today, the central bank making its October interest rate setting. And as for the rate setting, another cut is expected, which could lead to more spending as we move into the holiday period. So we'll see what happens with the bank rate coming up this morning. As well, an assault of a transit driver on Monday near Gateway and Springfield has the city's transit union calling on City Hall to move faster to install full enclosures for its bus drivers in those transit buses. I'll be back with more Manitoba News coming up at 8:30.
Well, as I mentioned, we have ongoing coverage this morning. Up next on the show, between 5 and 10% of Canadian school-age children meet the criteria for a learning disability. That's according to the Canadian Pediatric Society. The need is one of the reasons that we're talking about this locally. It's why Liberal MLA Cindy Lamoureux is calling for all kids to be screened twice a year, as I mentioned, between kindergarten and grade 3. Now, we looked at this bill that's being proposed in Manitoba yesterday. We also heard from a young girl who was in grade school talking about her challenges not being diagnosed and what it's like for her in class. And also we heard from an adult who shared her story, as I mentioned, of being diagnosed later in life. All of that brought a lot of emails. I'm getting private chat notes. People just, this is resonating with you. So before our next interview, I want to share two things that came in from listeners. The first one is Barbara writing to CBC saying, I'm listening to the idea of screening for learning disabilities. Preschool speech language pathology is also a big thing in early identification of a learning disability. We work in the areas of phonology, phonetic awareness, as well as language processing difficulties, but there's not enough of us to go around. And then Barbara shares her personal story, saying, it's not just reading. I was diagnosed with a math learning disability until 7th grade. I remember when the school psychologist told my parents that's what it was and why I was struggling. And my first reaction was, I'm not just stupid, Barbara writes. She says supports need to be provided throughout the student school career and post-secondary. And she shares her story. Connie also sharing her story, saying that through her life, she struggled, also didn't quite know what was going on with language and reading, and now uses audiobooks. She also listens a lot to the radio. That is helpful. And final listener comment here before our next guest. This comes from Jocelyn, who wrote to CBC's Radio 89.3 email. She says, there is, she's looking in the classroom. I'll read part of her email. She says, seasoned teachers can pick out students with learning disabilities within days of entering school without extra screening. The problem is not assessment and screening, but how to deal with learning disabilities once students are screened and diagnosed. Specific tools, curriculum, and training for how to teach those students with learning disabilities within the regular classroom is where the weakness lies, she writes. So much time is spent in assessment, developing plans, and learning to deal with diverse needs and disruptive behavior in classrooms that teachers don't need more on their plates like another screening twice a year. So that's part of what Jocelyn wrote in. There is a lot to explore here. Yesterday, we talked to the Learning Disabilities Association of Manitoba. They support the screening, by the way. This is Karen Veldhuis. She's the executive director. There may be people that will argue teachers are already noticing and flagging learning disabilities in the classroom, and that we don't need universal screening. What's your sense of that? That already teachers are catching this?
Absolutely, and teachers do notice, but sometimes by the time it becomes obvious in schools, kids are already struggling. So the formal screening would be proactive. It helps us look for risk factors before the struggles even appear, because the earlier we intervene, the better the outcome.
To weigh in this morning with a live interview via Zoom, Lillian Clausen joins us. She's the president of the Manitoba Teacher Society. Good morning.
Good morning.
So first of all, to the bill itself, the idea of universal screening twice a year for learning disabilities. What are your thoughts on that? Is it a good idea or not?
So what's important to know is that our teachers are screening students all the time from the time that they come into schools throughout the year. And so our concern, I guess, is when we hear words like standardized testing, universal screening, we understand that students don't all learn the same way, and we don't assess them all the same way. So teachers have a variety of tools that they use to assess students throughout the year. They have a variety of strategies that they use to teach students throughout the year. No one student will respond the same way to a universal or a standardized test as another student. And so who's administering these tests, who's reading these tests, those parts aren't standard. And so what do the results look like at the end, and who's reading the results and doing what with the results? I think we are used to a one-on-one approach with students' needs, and that we need to continue to do that to be able to get a better handle on what the learning needs and learning goals are of each of the students in the classrooms.
Would the help, though, in trying to be, as our guest said there, Karen Veldhuis, proactive about catching kids before maybe even they're in the classroom, though this bill is at the older ages, not be welcomed by teachers who, as we know, have a lot on their plates already?
So I do agree with one of the letters that you read earlier. When students come into the classrooms, the teachers can identify very early on what some of those learning needs are. And so when students come into kindergarten classes already, some of those learning needs are identified from the very beginning. And the tools that we already use, the variety of strategies that we use, the variety of assessment tools that we use already give some of that information.
But do teachers have the time, though, to do it regularly? Because, and if they don't, what resources could be added to the system that would help that happen if you believe that it has to stay in the classroom with the teachers who know the kids, as you're saying?
Mm-hmm. So yes, the teachers do take the time to do it regularly when it comes to the variety of assessment tools. So the observations, the communications, the testing that they do in the class, What takes away from that is when you want to bring in a standardized test or a universal screening where we're spending time doing that work, learning about the tool, trying to figure out how the tool is supposed to be used, how to read the tool, how to assess and find the data. That takes a lot of time. And it also takes a lot of resources and money. When we're talking about funding in schools and some of the underfunding that we have, is this the best way to use money? Maybe it is bringing in our specialists. We know that our specialists that are working at the divisional level or at the school level, the reading clinicians, those that are helping with the supports, we have less of those now than we've had in the past because of funding cuts. And so if we are throwing money into students with learning disabilities like we should be, maybe we should be doing it in a different way and not with assessment tools, but with people who can come in and help answer to those needs of students.
So that kind of echoes what the letter that I read here that says assessment isn't the issue, but it's actually then once you know a student has a learning disability, what do the supports look like through the school system? Is that an area then that needs support in your view by teachers in this province?
That is absolutely what is needed in the province. We sometimes have school divisions who have specialists like reading clinicians that work within the division, but then we assign the reading clinician to the 40 schools that are part of the division. How can one person come around and provide services to every one of the students that have needs in each one of those schools? And so if we are looking to really help students with learning difficulties, then we need to put in place some people who have specialty areas who can come in and do some of that assessing on a one-on-one basis, not a universal or a standardized type test, but actually meeting and speaking with the student and designing some strategies that can help that student. There's a variety of strategies that we need to be looking at, and we can try different strategies with different students. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. That's why we need a variety of tools and strategies, because not everyone answers the same way to the same types of interventions that we want to bring into place.
If you a reading clinician, somebody, a specialist for 40 schools, I mean, that's staying with me, that number. If you had, though, a specialist in each and every school that could do, let's lose the word universal because I know you stated that that's sort of something that's concerning for you. But if you had a specialist in every school, you had that bigger resource there all the time, and they were able to support teachers with their input, but support them to do maybe regular screening to see what's going on with the kids more regularly, would that be the ideal, or is there such a thing as an ideal model that would support this? Because kids are falling through the gaps.
Sure, that would be more along the lines of what we would like to see. When it comes to interventions with individual students, that's what we would like to see. And so if we have specialists in a variety of areas who are working either at the divisional level or at the school level, accompanying the teachers who are able to communicate with them the needs and the goals of the students, that would be certainly ideal.
In terms of the idea of having this, the bill says in school, but even at preschool, I'm going back to the standardized testing, but if you did test kids more at the preschool level, so when they came into the system, you would know who's identified with a learning disability. Would that be something that, through your lens at Manitoba Teachers Society, you think would be beneficial?
So it's difficult to say, because what does a test look like for a preschool student and what kind of information does that give you? I think interacting with students, learning about students on a one-on-one basis when they're coming into preschool programs or into early childhood programs is when you're learning what the learning needs of the student are.
What would you say to a parent who is in support of this and feels like, in the meantime, when the funding is not there, that this system would do more good than harm, that it would catch kids who are, haven't been diagnosed because, as you mentioned, teachers are so busy as well?
I think that's the key as well. I think the key is the communication between the parent and the teacher. If the parents are seeing signs of some learning difficulties at home, or if the teacher is seeing signs of learning difficulties at school, the communication between home and parents and schools is actually what's going to bring out this information that we need to be able to be successful with the student in the classroom. And so the more information that we have about the student, whether that be our direct observations in the classroom or what a parent observes at home, that will help us do this assessment and then be able to bring in some interventions for students. I
know that you have shared with CBC that you think that if this universal tool goes through, it would be, this is your language, a disservice to public education. How would it be a disservice to public education?
I think it's a disservice because we're concentrating funds and monies in the wrong areas. Who's building these universal assessment tools? Is this a part of privatizing education in Manitoba? Are we looking at spending money in the wrong area? I think without the contributions of the education system with these decisions, when we're talking about universal assessment or standardized tests, we're doing a disservice. We need to be a part of the conversation. We need to see what this is looking like. We need to see what the best practices are for our classrooms and best practices for our students.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning with your perspective on this topic. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Marcy.
That is Lillian Clausen, the president of the Manitoba Teachers Society. And if you want to weigh in, 788-3205. We'd love to get some calls from you.
Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, as you might have heard on World Report, Hurricane Melissa is lashing Cuba now this morning after going through Jamaica. It crashed into the island nation just hours after devastating large parts of Jamaica. So it arrived in Cuba as a Category 3 storm with winds of about 195 kilometers per hour. In Jamaica, officials are assessing damages right now to the country after Melissa battered it for most of yesterday. One official said infrastructure has been severely compromised, that's a quote, and that this is one of Jamaica's worst periods. Also a quote. More than 500,000 people were without power as of late in the day yesterday. Journalist Zara Burton spoke with the CBC's Heather Hiscox today.
I'm at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, where all the government officials are, and a few media personnel were allowed to hunker down here. So we're okay. I looked outside this morning, everything is calm. And as the morning rises, I'll try to go outside so I can give your viewers a sense of just how outside of Kingston looks. However, this is not the case in the western side of the island. You had significant impacts in places like St. Elizabeth, places like Westmoreland, places like Hanover. Montego Bay Airport was also damaged. So that could impact the ability for tourists to leave. As of yesterday, there were 25,000 tourists that were on the island. You're talking about significant damage, roofs blown off. Clarendon had some levels of flooding. You also had there were cars and homes. We saw some of the utility vehicles. Talk about the fact that right now I can't contact some of the people in those parishes right now because they just don't have any internet service. And yet we saw images yesterday of Flow, which is one of the big telecom providers. Their vehicles were submerged in water, several of those vehicles. And so the TVJ reporter, the news reporter on site was saying, if these are recovery vehicles, this may take even longer to recover. We did have an announcement yesterday that Starlink was supposed to be providing some kind of service so that we all could maintain connectivity, but maybe the message got out late because it seems to me that we still have a problem connecting with our loved ones and different connections in the western side of the island to get full feedback about what has happened so far.
So given all of the challenges that you're just outlining to us and the difficulty for communication, are you even on the island at a point of starting recovery efforts, or is that even underway at all yet?
The Prime Minister made that very clear that he's getting started. And in a tweet, he said, our country, yes, has been ravaged by Hurricane Melissa, but we will rebuild and we will do so even better than before. And he encouraged Jamaicans to be hopeful as well. He said, I know many of you, especially those in the affected parishes, are feeling disheartened. Your homes may have been damaged or destroyed, and your communities and towns no longer look the same. I know your pain and I feel your loss. We're mobilizing quickly to start the relief and recovery efforts, and we will be there with you every step of the way.
That is journalist Zara Burton in Kingston, Jamaica, talking with CBC's Heather Hiscox this morning in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa moving through Jamaica yesterday. Right now, the concern is Cuba, as that storm is on the move. We are coming up to 8:30 in news time. You are with CBC 89.3 FM Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa, host of the morning show here. Let's talk about Radio Nuno for a second. Their call-in today is about going south. Canadians dreaming of the warm getaway this this winter, may find crossing the border harder than ever before. But is it worth it to still escape the winter, to go down south for snowbirds or otherwise? That's the call-in. Text your thoughts or call between 12:30 and 1 on Radio Noon. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 0. It's going to be a beautiful day. Sunshine, a bit of a breeze, and warmer than seasonal. The normal high is 4 today, a high of 8. The Union for Bus Drivers wants safety measures implemented faster. It comes after the assault of a transit operator earlier this week. Amalgamated Transit Union President Chris Scott says a driver was attacked Monday near Gateway and Springfield. He says the city is looking at full enclosures for drivers, but they won't even be tested until the end of next year. Scott would like to see that moved up by a year.
With this latest assault, there's been a lot of conversation of operators saying, I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay. I'm concerned about going to work. And a lot of times they're voicing the concerns of their own family members that said, you're not going into work. You got to look for another job.
Public Works Chair, Councillor Janice Luke, says she would also like to see it happen more quickly. Luke says they are working closely with the union, but finding the right design and the right suppliers, she says, takes time. A Sapataouiat Cree Nation family says they want answers in the death of their sister, who they say was refused care and died. Naturelle Cook says her sister Shandy, who had been living with leukemia, went to the Swan River Health Centre October 10th. Naturelle says Shandy was struggling to breathe and vomiting blood. She now questions why Shandy was turned away from the hospital only to die later that night.
Nurses racially profiled her as an addict coming to look for more drugs. So then they denied her help, and then she got sent home.
Naturelle says her family wants an apology for her sister's death. The Regional Health Authority says it is investigating but can't comment on specific patients. Manitoba's Advocate for Children and Youth says alcohol was involved in the majority of serious injury cases it investigated last year. The Advocate's annual report was tabled in the legislature yesterday ahead of today's official release. The Advocate says it reviewed 95 serious injury reports in the fiscal year ending in March. Of those, 58% were drug or alcohol related, and just over half were the result of a sexual assault. The Advocate's scope covers Manitobans aged 20 and under who are receiving a reviewable service, most commonly because they are in the care of Child and Family Services. CO Silica has applied once again for a license to extract sand from southeast Manitoba. The Alberta Mining Company wants to drill below the surface of the RM of Springfield. The province rejected its original proposal back in 2024 over concerns about the effects on drinking water and geological stability. This new proposal calls for fewer mines over a smaller area and removing less sand. Mining opponent Tanji Bell says the new proposal is no different than the original.
They plan to mine in the same location, which is Manitobans' drinking water. And they plan to use the same high-risk, novel, and arguably unlawful mining method that causes irreparable damage. You can't correct this.
Bell urges the province to reject this new proposal. Premier Rob Canoe says it will go through the approval process. Today is a big day for the Bank of Canada. The central bank is making its October interest rate setting, and it is releasing its first economic forecast since January. That forecast will include the bank's view on where the economy is headed in the midst of the ongoing Trump tariff campaign. As for the rate setting, another cut is expected this morning. The bank trimmed its influential rate last month by a quarter point, dropping it down to 2.5%. Well, Winnipeg baseball fans turned out in droves for a Blue Jays watch party put on by the Winnipeg Goldeyes last night, and they were not disappointed. The Jays outplayed the Dodgers 6-2, tying the World Series at 2 games apiece. Goldeyes catcher Kevin Garcia says even though he's from California, he's rooting for the Jays, partly because manager John Schneider coached him when he was in Toronto's minor league system.
Super cool dude, down to earth, players coach. Everyone that played for him loved him.
and super happy for him to see him out there in the World Series now.
Garcia hopes Jays Fever helps more young kids get involved in baseball in Canada. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
So thanks to Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison and Joni Nicolo in our news center. Our live team in Studio 15, Corey Funk, as well as Abby Adiyemi and Darren Marash. And I'll have a couple more thank yous in a moment. First, let's hear from Corey about the commute.
May still be an SUV blocking southbound Salter Bridge in the curb lane. Last I heard, the owner was working to change their tire. Thanks to Kathy for calling, and thanks to everyone who called in this morning.
Abby.
Yeah, sunshine on its way for southern parts of the province. We'll see temperatures warm up close to 8 and 10 degrees in southern regions, while up north we should be seeing highs near 5 degrees. And for tomorrow, we expect some showers.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
So, yeah, the rain's back tomorrow potentially. So we'll see if that happens. Should be okay for Halloween, though. We're all watching Friday, right, though? So hopefully it'll be dry. I mentioned a few more thank yous. So let's thank Nellie Gonzalez, the Current Affairs show's producer overall. Leif Larson, also the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. In addition, those with work on today's program, associate producers Jenna Badasso, Sierra Sanders, and Sophia Peralta-Baron. Thank you all very much for your work. Appreciate you, and so do the listeners, because everyone listening is hearing our team's work. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for tuning in today. Take care, be well, and remember, we're here again tomorrow with another new edition of Information Radio. The Current's coming up next on 89.3 FM. Have a good one.